million kids? I'm sorry for shouting, but it just disgusts me what these people in government do. And they do it through central banking and through the control of the money supply, and Bitcoin takes that away from them.
This is the sound of freedom coming out your speakers. How they playing hide and seek or finders keepers. Let me define my thesis. While they treasonous deep in the malfeasance, a grand deception, 1,000 reasons. Keeping the truth out of our reach, the powers that be. No morale for peace, just war when there's mouths to feed. Covering mouths when they're trying to breathe. A silence that speaks volumes, now the blind can see. See, they lie and deceive. Divide and conquer minds when they try to perceive what's behind the curtains that eyes can't see. Incentivized greed, desensitized breeds, gentrified streets, keeping money centralized leads to total control. To keep a hold of your soul, so you don't own but you owe. On the verge of wholeness and thrown in a hole. They really think it's all a game, I can only console. And say the rain is over, there's nowhere to go. So
eyes wide open, now and always. I'm breaking out of your chains. Freedom is an optional. Believe the impossible. Wanna take our heroes, bury my faith. Standing inside our faith. Believe the impossible. Freedom is an optional. Freedom is an optional.
now we can wait on karma to make them pay, but what's the price of freedom? It seems the darkest of days brings a light in the evening, meaning the steepest of gradients and peaks and failures that we embrace can lead to the rhyme and the reason. Leak the truth and they try to delete them. Elitists is hiding secrets, I'm fleeing sirens while seeking asylum. They creep in the quiet and keep us all divided by beefing, but sheep is their diet and people compliant. By any means we keep our heroes safe. They try to clip their wings while they're flying. The road to freedom's either peaceful or violent. Throw up the peace sign, I might disappear like I'm Satoshi. Walking the silk path, follow Roger if you copy. There's more Assange and Snowden. Weather storms you can answer Romans. If tornadoes leaving the masters beholden. With eyes open, see the devil in disguise. And keep your mind wide open, cause it won't be televised. We arise.
There will be no real non-controlled currency in the world.
We're coming for you, banks.
Increasing the block size to 32 megabytes right now. What would be the top 5 arguments that would get hurled against me?
Oh, that's a good one.
There are a few that the big blockers got right.
Ching, like all these coins splash into the wallets of all the winners. I love that.
There's a new threat out there. It's crypto.
Hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast, following Bitcoin Cash on its inevitable upward rise to global reserve currency. This is episode number 135, AFoG progress and Trump election featuring David Shattuck. Today is Saturday, the 9th of November, 2024. I'm your host, Jeremy. Chet is doing the producing, same as always. We will talk about the specifics of this in a moment, but just quickly to hit the price, the Trump pump, it's $374.73, 100 megasats of BCH, so we're way up there. One BTC sat buys 204.1 BCH sats, which is flat, and one ETH buys at 812 megasats, which is way down. So ETH having a pretty good week. BCH at rank 15. Quick announcement: meme competition is in full swing at the moment. We've started getting some submissions. Like I said before, 2 BCH in total, 1 BCH for first place. The Google Doc is on the slides, so you can get involved in that. And yeah, win yourself some BCH just for being funny, or even just creative. Even if it doesn't even have to be that funny, as long as it's creative, you made a big effort, we might be impressed. Okay, our guest today is David Shattuck, the creator, founder, I don't know, lead developer, I don't know what your title you would give yourself, of A Fifth of Gaming, last seen on episode 94, which was over a year ago. I was having a look at that, October of 2023. Welcome back to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you, sir. I am doing wonderfully. It is an absolute joy to be back on the show. As I mentioned last time, am a big fan of this show. So to be invited on was an honor, and to be invited back was doubly so. So yeah, I will be honest. When you reached out to me and said, "Hey, you want to come back on the show?" my subconscious knee-jerk reaction was like confusion. Like, why would I come? I was just on the show. Why would I come back on the show? But then I looked and I was like, that was 13 months ago. Like, the time has just flown by. And, I took that also as an opportunity to, just kind of for my own satisfaction, but also it's just something that I like to do from time to time. I took it as an opportunity to go back and look at, my monthly dev blog and just read through all the things that have changed on the website, and also just reflect back on a year of life. Like, a lot of things have happened in the last 13 months. So yeah, it seems like a great time to go back on the Bitcoin Cash podcast again and talk through some of it. So super excited to be here again.
Well, you might be in prime position, because the guests, they got to sneakily create a yearly slot for themselves, Ryan Giffen
is the king of that.
Yeah, he's the king of it. I don't know how he's done it, but he's got the April slot, and he's right before the upgrade, and he's also got the Christmas slot, so he's killing it. Marcelo was trying to angle in there for a yearly slot. It's been about 1 year, so maybe you can have the lock-in slot. That's what it'll be before the upgrade.
Sure. I'd be happy to make a play for, early November, late October. Just, let me know what forms I need to fill out or whatever, and I'll try to make it happen.
It's a down payment, mate. There's a big BCH invoice.
Okay. That sounds good.
No, you just pay in hours of your life rather than...
yes. Do the proof of work. Yeah.
That's right. Proof of work.
I need to be continually interesting over the course of the year so that people, would be interested in hearing me talk in the late October, early November timeframe.
That's it. Okay, so before we get on to AFoG then, let's just say in general, how are you feeling with BCH now? I mean, it has been a year. We got the VM limit stuff about to lock in. Just in general, what's the vibe?
Yeah, so I'm feeling real good. So I mentioned a lot of things have happened in the past year, and you actually have one of them on the screen here. So we talked in October. This picture was taken in January. This is when I went down to the Caribbean with my wife, Emily, and I went to St. Kitts. That was an awesome experience. And, anyone who hasn't seen it, please check out the Twitter thread where I posted just me going to stores in St. Kitts that have Bitcoin Cash accepted here stickers on them, and just filming myself buying things. That was amazing. In addition to that, I went to the International in the Dota 2 International in Seattle, which was amazing. That's not BCH specific, but it was a fun life event that got me super hyped about building out AFoG. The Happening was this year, which I'm always excited about. I got married in April. We had the giant Magic the Gathering tournament in March. BCH Bliss was absolutely incredible. The specifics of how is BCH doing, that conference was a blast. It was amazing meeting all of these people in person, actual legends of the Bitcoin Cash space, you guys among them, shaking their hands, just listening to what people are working on. And, there's a certain joy of I had people, I was having lunch with a guy at the conference, and half an hour into it, we're to the dessert at this point. He suddenly stops and is like, "You're the Fifth of Gaming guy." I was like, "Yeah." He's like, AFoG. So that was incredible. And as far as how is BCH doing, conferences like that are absolutely wonderful. Shout out to you guys for all the work that you put into that conference. Shout out to Jonathan Silverblood, Ryan, anyone else who contributed to that. It was amazing. It's been a great year for Bitcoin Cash and the Bitcoin Cash community in my estimation. Obviously I'm just in my little corner of the world. But seeing new people trying it out, seeing the sparkle in their eye when they see it work for the first time is amazing. And as you asked about the kind of upcoming lock-in, I think that's fantastic as well. Like I actually just posted on the AFoG Twitter maybe a week ago, kind of my formal support for VM limits and the big ints. Quick aside, quick commentary on the process. You had Jason Dreisner on a few episodes ago, and I am encouraged by how that whole thing played out. So on the one hand, I'm very glad that there are systems in place and there are guardrails that kind of define and describe, here's the path to follow if you want to make changes to the protocol. Like that's really important stuff. We don't want to be flippant about that. But the way this worked out, I thought was really nice in that, Jason was kind of behind schedule on things, but it looks like it's going to go through anyway. And I think that is sort of a manifestation of like the simple reality that we are a community of people that have opinions about each other based on the work that we see people doing. And, it's decentralized, but people still have reputations. And, like if this was just some yokel that had walked in the door and been like, oh, yeah, herpy derp, I want to make some changes to the protocol and it's behind schedule. We would have been like, yeah, you need to get into the line and do it properly. But this wasn't just some guy. This was Jason freaking Dreisner, who came through with like, okay, this proposal has been in the works for years. And he came, almost with his hat in hand, apologetic for being like behind schedule. And obviously I can't speak for anyone else, but I at least am willing to like, hey, it's okay, guy. Like it's fine that you're a little late. Like, you can look through the proposal and you can see that like, okay, a lot of work has been done with this. A lot of thought has been put into it. A lot of very smart people have reviewed it and discussed it and been thinking about it. The problems that these, ostensibly will solve are annoying today for a lot of the important players in the space. And just the prospect of getting it out a year later for the simple, arbitrary deadlines that have been placed on the process beforehand. So, long story short, I'm glad there's a system in place. I'm glad there's wiggle room available, when appropriate. So yeah, looking back this last year, looking forward to this next year, Bitcoin Cash as a whole, I'm really excited with how things have been going and how things seem like they're going to be going over the next 12 months.
Well, that's one of the things with time moving fast, as you say. That's why it's so important to have that momentum on shipping upgrades, because then it's just like, before you know it, the next one's happening and the next one's happening. Like the competitors that we have, whether that's BTC, whether it's the legacy financial system, whether it's, other cryptos, like whatever it is, whether it's the gold bug community, right? It doesn't matter. If your community, I always think of crypto as being like a race, like a rowing race. I did dragon boating in high school, so I always kind of think of it like that. And it's like, what's not important is where your boat is. What's important is the speed you're moving forward at, right? Mm-hmm. It's much better to be behind, but with a very fast pace, than in front, but like slowing down, right? So in that sense, I think that's why you've got it, and that's why I like that we kind of were like, okay, Jason's done a lot of good work, and I don't think anybody's going to be able to abuse this as a loophole in the process of precedent, because almost nobody, there's maybe one or two other examples that I could see giving that kind of leeway to, but that list is very, very short, and none of those people would abuse that like precedent, So I feel like that's an additional safety guard that we have, and it's important that we just have that urgency of, now's the time, it's good, ship it, right? Just keep the boat rolling.
Yeah, development cadence is very important. Like, a lot of professional projects I've been on, it's like, okay, every Wednesday, deploy to production, whatever you've got, just deploy it. Like, and then, just keep moving forward. And an extra comment I'll add on to that. One of the, many things that I like about the Bitcoin Cash space is that we have a process for this. Obviously most of my attention is focused on Bitcoin Cash, but, I see what other projects are doing. You look into, obviously, one of my favorite things about this show and to do on this show is to dunk on Bitcoin. But you look at, there are people operating or trying to operate in the Bitcoin development space, and they don't even know how to generate the kind of consensus that they would need to make any change. There's no formal description of sequence of events. And I don't think that's an accident. I think the people who have control of Bitcoin are enemies of it and don't want there to be a way to introduce progress to the system. So comparing that side by side with what Bitcoin Cash does, of this like very well-defined and generally accepted and agreed upon approach to things, it enables this sort of inevitable march of forward progress and development cadence that we've just been talking about. And I think that's, I don't want to say it's underappreciated, but when I see what other people are doing, I give it 2 big thumbs up.
Yeah, one thing I want to add on to that as well is that there was some discussion that I've seen about the chip process where some people have said, oh, I'm not a developer, so I can't weigh in on this. And I think that's sort of misunderstanding like what's going on here. Yes, obviously these proposals, particularly like this big one, for instance, might be quite technical in nature, and not everybody in the world is going to be a Jason Dreisner level developer to be able to look into it. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't engage with the process and just say, well, it's out of my hands, or I can't write a support proposal. I saw like Steve Thurman did one and a bunch of other people, and in their support message you can just say, look, I'm not a developer, but I support this for these reasons. It's the same as like in politics, right? If you're maybe not an expert on the economy or on the healthcare system or the education system or every different aspect of it, but you can define your own criteria for how you're going to decide. And if that means listening to various sides of the argument and then making a best guess, then that's what it is. If that means you have certain people who you think, okay, if those people are on board with it, then this is solid, then that's good. If you have a metric like, if it's too quick, I'm going to say no. But, given I've seen things discussed long enough, then I can be reasonably confident that this is not something that's just being rushed in. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter if you're a developer or not, because the whole community has to buy into the protocol level upgrade, even if it's just the idea. Like Abla was great in that sense, because a lot of people were like, yeah, hell yes, let's do this. Okay, I'm not tweaking the parameters of the algorithm myself, but I can see that this is a strategy that makes sense. And so I think everybody should be aware of that, whether they are a developer or not, that the more people engage with it, the better the whole process becomes, because you can bring your own angle to it.
So I was waiting for Abla to get mentioned. I pulled this off the wall just beforehand. I wanted to just see that I framed my Jessica poster. This is like,
that's amazing,
professional grade museum glass, and now it hangs on my wall right over there.
That is so cool.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, there's limits, of course, but generally speaking, the more eyeballs on these things, the better. And the more, like, the greater the diversity of backgrounds of the eyeballs, the more people thinking about it, the more people looking at it, the better. Now there's the risk of like, okay, the more the better, as long as everyone's operating in good faith. Like, there's always the danger of someone's just going to like, hey, I object to this, not because I have this well-constructed technical dispute with it, just because like I want to disrupt the process. Now, generally speaking, you don't see a lot of that these days in Bitcoin Cash, but it's something that's always in the back of my mind, just from what we've been through over the last decade. But overall, as I said, it's a great process, and I believe it's working well, and I'm excited to see the upgrades that get rolled out with it over the next several years.
Yeah, but that's also where people need to be, paying attention, right? It's because even if you aren't a dev, well, everybody's a social person. Everybody understands society. Everybody understands debates. Even if not the content of the debate, they can understand how people debate and how their track record plays into that and stuff. And that's very important, because even if you're not a developer, if you can figure out, okay, these are the developers that have been around for a long time, that have done a lot of great work, they've done upgrades that make sense, okay, I should in general be more likely to support their ideas than people who are just coming out of nowhere, or who have been like disruptive, or and being able to accurately assess that, you know, across the variety of mediums that there is BCH discussion is a skill and a thing that people can keep in mind, even if they're not going to become a full-time developer. So I just think that should be top of mind for people. I also wanted to ask a little bit more about the St. Kitts thing. You mentioned it just briefly. Okay, you went around and bought some stuff at the shop, but in that thread, it was hard to overstate. You were so enthusiastic because I think maybe it far exceeded your expectations of what it was, right?
So I had heard about this, you know, because Roger was living down there, and you know, Sonny was active in the area, and you see Twitter posts and Reddit threads of like, oh, hey, here's this new shop that's been onboarded and whatever. And when I saw that, I was like, well, that's neat. I want to see that for myself to see if it's a real thing. Like, you know, you can put anything you want on the internet, and who knows, you know, whether it's real or not. So I scheduled the trip down there like a year in advance, like a year, 18 months, a long time in advance. And my expectation, if I'm being frank, was like, okay, maybe there was a temporary buzz about it for a while, but so enough time has passed that they will have just taken the stickers down and they'll be done with it. And so when I arrived in the port there, St. Kitts, I said to him, I was traveling with my sister and her family and my wife Emily. And I said to them, like, okay, so my goal today is to I want to see if I can find one sticker, Bitcoin Cash accepted here, and I will go into that store and I will ask them if they accept it. If they do, I will buy it. So I'm walking down the dock, and there's a huge, giant Bitcoin Cash accepted here sticker right on the port. And, you know, at least dozens, maybe over 50 stores I saw had the Bitcoin Cash accepted here stickers on them. And now, to be fair, and I did mention this in the thread, a bunch of them I went in and I said, oh, you said Bitcoin Cash? And they, blank stare, like, what the heck is Bitcoin Cash? And I'm like, you've got a sticker right there on your door. Like, I came in to spend some Bitcoin Cash. So there were certainly those. So there were people who had kind of, dropped off the boat. But there were also a lot where I said, Bitcoin Cash. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, I think we do. Okay, yeah, we got the wallet here, and they were perfectly cool with it. The jewelry store that I went to, the sales guy that I talked to, he didn't just accept it. He was excited, like, oh, fantastic. Like he's been to Bitcoin, conferences, not BCH specific, but just crypto conferences. He knows people who know people, and he was real gung ho about doing the whole thing. So yeah, it blew my expectations away. And it was very exciting, very encouraging to see BCH existing in other parts of the world. I have my little corner. I've said that before. I've got my little corner of the globe, if it's a gaming world, my friends and family who use BCH. But it's, I don't know, horizon expanding or something to go to another country, whether it's, I'm down in these Caribbean islands, or I'm in Slovenia or wherever, and there's BCH people here. And there are people here, in the case of Slovenia, who have come from all the other corners of the world. And it's like, this really is a global thing, isn't it? It's very cool in that regard. But yeah, that was an amazing experience, St. Kitts.
Yeah, it can always feel a little bit out of time. And I think that's a common thing in crypto, and specifically in BCH, just because so much of it tends to operate online. People make these friends online, they join communities online, maybe even they transact online, obviously, with BCH amongst themselves, doing P2P trades or whatever. And then even if you go to a step, you do a meetup that's in your local area, and there's one or two other people there, and you're like, okay, there's a little bit of this happening, but it's quite different to see it sort of, at scale and think, oh, okay, all these, 15,000 BCH transactions that are happening every day, a bunch of them are going on here, and now I'm here. Now I'm seeing it, somebody else was. I mean, the St. Kitts thing is definitely real. Okay, if you go there, I think, on the other hand, you might hear us hyping it up and think, okay, it's not like everywhere. It's not like every single shop accepts it and every single customer is paying it. No, because it's nothing like that. But it's enough that it feels real. It's like, you know, whatever, 30% of shops have the sticker, 20% of them maybe can actually accept it. If you want to buy a couple things, you buy a t-shirt, you buy some jewelry, you buy a beer, whatever, and there must be at least enough sort of local traction that it keeps going, right? So that's a very good point. Like, you know, the preferred currency from that spot, which, you know, to be clear, is a tourist trap spot. This is, you know, cruise ships coming in and stuff. Preferred currency is dollars. Preferred transaction method is credit cards. But, you know, there weren't any Bitcoin accepted here signs. There was no Litecoin stickers. There's no Dash. It was the city was papered over with Bitcoin Cash accepted here stickers. And of course, you know, we have to be realistic. That's a lot of Roger Ver and Sonny's work. They were very deliberate about getting that space online, but it's still there. At least it was in January when I was there. So, yeah. Yeah, it might vary over time. I don't know how active they've been recently. And obviously, Roger's been out of there and stuff. So, but I don't know whether that would have made a big impact on it or actually nothing, because there's enough other activity going on that I actually have no idea. I was there in November of 22. So 2 years ago now, I guess, was when we had that St. Kitts conference. So I also have no idea. But anyway, it's very encouraging to hear that year to year, then it's still operating.
One other snippet from that story, you know, concerning the like ongoing business thing is when I got my street tacos, carnitas, whatever they were absolutely scrumptious. Was talking to the guy, asked him if he accept Bitcoin Cash, and he did. He told me that he paid one of his vendors in BCH, and I was like, oh, no way. And it turned out it was actually Ryan Giffen. Like, Ryan does business with this guy that I bumped into in St. Kitts because I bought tacos from him. And I'm like, that's awesome. What a, you know, circular economy, small world kind of moment.
Yeah, exactly. And this is why also on this show that I'm, you know, so strongly on that kind of like maximalist, like all in on BCH, because when you see the whole ecosystem come together like that, it's very obvious that this wouldn't really have been feasible if you had 5 different people all with their favorite different coin. Somebody was trying to make a 5 coin, you know, point of sale machine rather than just one. Okay, like it's hard enough getting a few different wallets to all just follow the same technical standard and all work at instant speed. And actually, can you imagine how fragmented the network effect is if you get some money flowing into the economy, but then some other guy likes Litecoin and some other guy thinks that Monero is the future, and then the one BCH guy convinces another BCH guy, but then it's only the 2 of them at the meetup instead of the 4 of them, and like it's just so obvious that you've got to get a critical mass on the same page that works, right? When you, like you said, even just seeing the stickers, it's BCH every time. It's not like some, I don't know, open bazaar of like different coins or anything, which is apparently more how like Porkfest is or something, but I haven't been to that, so I don't know.
I haven't been there, but I know my boss actually, Mike, has been there, and he was like, yeah, they will accept whatever cryptocurrency you have, and if you don't have crypto, okay, fine, we'll accept your dirty dollars, that's fine. So
well, it should be interesting. I know there's sometimes people talk about year to year, like they sort of track a bit like which crypto, there's not any official stats, but there's just sort of word on the street of like, at the moment, I think it's basically Monero, BCH, maybe like nobody uses Lightning Network. BTC has basically dropped off a cliff, maybe a little bit of I think BCH and Monero and Goldbacks are like the most loved.
Those, I believe, are the kinds of things you want to be looking at when you're asking the question of, okay, there's thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even millions of like projects that fall under the cryptocurrency umbrella. To answer the question, okay, which of these is closest in the pursuit of realistically becoming global reserve currency? It's, okay, which ones are being used at these kinds of events when actual transactions need to happen? Okay, it's the ones that are focused on privacy. It's the ones that are, you know, basically instant, basically free to transact with, and, you know, Bitcoin Cash, Monero, those are the kings of the space right now.
Been around a long time and have a serious community.
They have reputation, they have community, they have infrastructure, they have the wallets, they have the apps. Like,
exactly.
You know.
Yeah. So speaking of that, then let's get on to AFoG. So I guess 1 year ago, like you've been doing the dev blogs now, it was devblog 13, right? So literally you were probably starting the dev blogs at the time when we did the last one, right?
So I published devblog number 2 the same month that I appeared on the podcast. And looking back that far was astonishing almost. Like I couldn't believe how much it changed. And I mean, you can actually see it in the intro of the Bitcoin Cash 2024 podcast, like the intro. I am still super hyped to be in the intro. Ching, all these coins splash into the water.
One more month, mate. Then you're out.
I don't think I'm gonna make it. I gotta enjoy this last month. But if you look at the video of that clip, you can see a glimpse of what the site looked like in those days, and it was awful. And I've said before, like I am not a front-end developer. I hate CSS. I hate all of that stuff. Anything to do with colors or shading or borders or margins, I hate all of it, and I'm bad at it, and I don't want to get good at it. I just hate it. But as a result, the website that I spent all this time working on looks awful. It looks terrible. Now, fortunately, a good friend of mine, Josh, who is, I'll say more enthusiastic about UI design than I am, saw Fifth of Gaming. He loved what was happening with it. And he was like, I want to contribute to that. And so he did this giant UI redesign, like moving things into better places, making things look nicer, the colors, the backgrounds, all that stuff.
We've got some pictures Jet can just show. I actually put some on the slide because I also wanted to highlight the massive design upgrade.
Fantastic.
Go on.
Okay, yeah. So the old system was just a blank white background, like bare bones, everything. There's nothing. And now, like, there's clearly been some thought put into how things should look and where things should be laid out and the color palettes and all that stuff. Josh was also the one that pointed me to SteamGrid DB, which is sort of an online free-to-use game art site that I have now built an integration into Fifth of Gaming, which is why you go to any game night session page, whether it's StarCraft 2 or Magic the Gathering or whatever, the art in the background and all the game art boxes and all the icons, it's all from there. It's all fan art, and it's always changing. Like as they add new ones, it always picks one at random just so that it's always fresh and exciting. And that's just one aspect. The UI has had a major overhaul, but like basically everything has had a major overhaul. When I was on the podcast last time, we hadn't even released yet. Like go live date was January 1st. So when I talked to you last time, we were in sort of a closed beta where it's invitation only. No one can create a guild except me. There's only one game. It's Magic. Like this is very controlled, very locked down. And of course today, like once we went live, anyone can create any guild they want for whatever game they want. And they have all kinds of controls over, the settings of the tournaments and all that stuff. So yeah, definitely come a long way.
Yes, well, I've got some stats here as well. Another thing that you delivered in the last year. So it does month to month. You can go to fifthofgaming.com/stats and see these actually very cool stats, which is like I've been talking about in various iterations on the show. Like I hope more and more projects start to do this. BCH Bull does it. BCH Guru does it. The podcast does it. You do it. Celine does it, right? I think it's really important that we basically have to open source our data so then we can be both data driven and also it's just morale boosting. It's very fun, honestly, to look at all this stuff. So I had a bit of a look. In October, you had 41 tournaments with 49 active users, which consisted in total between registration, payouts, admin tips, donations, etc., to 396 BCH transactions, which is 120 million sats worth of prizes, so 1.2 BCH in prizes, which I guess in USD is what, $600 probably, and then 40 million sats of registration fees, so about a third of that, 200 in registration fees. Now this is not, changing the world economy yet, but that's traction. That's not just like my mom tried it and said good job and then never
exactly
again,
Yeah, so this whole concept of stats, like you said, it's good for it to be open. One of the things that bugs me a lot about just I'll say cryptocurrency projects in general, but just projects in general, is the people running them will inflate the numbers. They will lie about them. Like, a famous example recently was Elon Musk bought Twitter. And then there's suddenly this question like, do you really have as many users as you said you did? Like, those kinds of questions are, they can be real problems. Now, I don't want to be like that. So I'm, hey, anyone who's interested, here are the actual numbers. Here's how many unique email verified users logged into the system in the last 30 days. It's exactly 49. And here's exactly how many Bitcoin Cash transactions were completed by the Sophisticated Gaming project. And I have all of the transaction IDs. They are publicly available on the site. You can go look at them to see that these are real, actual transactions that are happening. But yeah, plus one also to what you said about traction. I was actually talking to again my boss Mike about this recently. Every engineer has projects, like side things that they are tinkering on. Like whatever kind of engineer you're talking about, they're going to have a little workbench in their garage or their basement where they're tinkering with something. Or if it's a software developer, they're going to make little apps that do cool things or just explore technology that they are interested in learning more about. But having a side project for an engineer, having a side project generate interest among other people is like this magical unicorn. Like that doesn't happen. Like no one cares about little side projects. So, like you said, 50 active users, that's not going to change the world economy, but boy, that sure means a lot to me. Like that's really incredible for me. And that's another reason why I kind of made this stats page, not only to show everyone else how it's going, but also for me to look at it and be like, wow, people really enjoy this. Like they seem to like using the platform because they keep coming back to it. And of course, that's just motivation for me to, continue working harder and building out new features. And, the backlog is still long and apparently it seems like it's getting longer. So
I'm sure it is. More users, more problems, as Biggie Smalls once said, So
something like that.
But it is like when you say, these things are all exponential, right? It's the same as the podcast, right? Like now I was looking at the stats this morning for a similar reason. We've got 2,400 YouTube subscribers, and every month we're averaging at the moment 500 to 1,000 hours of time watched on YouTube, and we've just hit 25,000 total for the run of the show, which is nearly 4 years now. So that means the current run rate is about twice the average run rate, which is an upward sloping thing, right? Obviously. And so
that's amazing. Like kudos to you guys. Like well done on that. And I've said this before to you guys directly, but the work you're doing is really important. And I hope that you will continue it for a long time with community support.
Yes, well, we're doing what we can, but it's just a case of like realizing that these things are exponential. That's why I'm so excited about even these, small projects in BCH or something that I can see some potential in. I really try and make a big, deal out of it and mention it several times and try and get people to look into it, because those first 5, 10, 50 users are the ones who provide the initial feedback.
They're the hardest. The first users are the hardest to get. And, there is in A Fifth of Gaming built-in mechanisms that I hope will serve as a sort of flywheel to spin things up. So another thing that was added this year, this did not exist at all other than like a concept somewhere in the back of my mind. It's the idea of sponsorships. So my hope is that there will be this feedback loop where the more users there are on A Fifth of Gaming, and by the way, 100% of the users in A Fifth of Gaming who are participating in tournaments have a Bitcoin Cash wallet. You cannot register for A Fifth of Gaming tournament unless you have a BCH wallet on your profile. So 100% of the users have wallets, and the more users there are, my hope is that the more sponsors who are active in the Bitcoin Cash space or the gaming space will be like, hey, there's a lot of eyeballs looking at these pages. I want to spend a few bucks to get a bronze tier sponsorship, and that will boost up the prize pools, which will in turn boost up the user counts. So I'm hoping, more users means more sponsors, which means more users, and it'll just, kind of grow and grow and grow from there. And I probably haven't done a good job of marketing sponsorships as a concept. I think people might think they're more expensive than they actually are, but the cost of getting a sponsorship on a Fifth of Gaming guild is a function of how many sponsorship Satoshis this given guild has received in the past. So if, and they're also weighted by time. So older donations become weighted less and less and less. So I checked yesterday, the cost to sponsor our largest guild, like Magic the Gathering Arena Daily Challenge, where they have tournaments every single day. The cost is $11, and you get your logo and your link right on there. So again, my hope is the more people who know about that, the more sponsorships we'll get, which will feed into more players. And the other thing about that is, I also think I haven't done a good job of making players understand that there are systems in a Fifth of Gaming that are designed to support them and help them get started. So, if you create a new tournament guild on a Fifth of Gaming and you get into your guild 5 verified users, so you have reached a threshold where there's 5 players, there are systems that will automatically start funding your prize pools. Like your tournament wallets will just automatically start receiving pay-ins. And it's from the sponsorship vault, which was actually your idea. It just takes a little bit and it just puts in whatever guild needs it the most. So yeah, all that, like you said, I things grow. I believe this will continue growing. I'm trying to foster and build mechanisms that will kind of usher that along. But obviously time will tell.
So while we're on that topic, Jez asking in the chat, how's the monetization aspect of it for you? Because obviously, like you said, every engineer, they play around with their thing in their basement or whatever, and that serves as a creative outlet for them, but also it gives them a way to explore new skills and new things that they then, end up working into their employment or future projects or whatever it is. But then once other people start getting interested, that's great because other people are interested, but it also starts to become a business more than just I do this in my free time, and that has demands. Obviously you can't just, if you just leave it alone and don't fix bugs, don't add support, don't add new features, don't respond to requests, then don't support users that are having trouble, then the thing's going to just die and be back to just a hobby project that you and nobody else cares about, right? So it comes to, okay, so now I need to get paid at least somewhat to do this. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so the revenue model for a Fifth of Gaming is that the revenue generated is equal to 3% of the prize pools, or $1 per month per active user. So if you have so those two numbers, whichever one is higher, that's how much ends up in my pocket. And so if you have a guild that has 10 active players, then I will get $10 worth of BCH per month for that guild running and doing its regular operations. So another thing that has changed this year is that the amount of revenue generated is now greater than the cost to me to run the servers. So round
of applause for that.
I was super excited about that. Yeah, it's as long as you count the value of my time as 0, this is now profitable. Which
that's bootstrapping, mate.
That's bootstrapping. That's how it goes.
Your time is in the equity. Your time is earning the equity in the project. That's what it is.
And to be perfectly transparent, I love this. I love what I'm doing. I'm not in it for the money. I have there's 4 very specific goals that are behind my motivation to work on a Fifth of Gaming. And those goals have been unchanged since the beginning. The big ones are about Bitcoin Cash. I'm here to demonstrate the functionality of this incredible new technology. You can build a website that just moves money around using just business logic. Whatever business logic you want to use, you can encode that into an application. And I don't need any special permissions or keys or licenses. It just works. It's a few lines of code.
Okay. All right. So you've also launched a token as well. Now that we're getting to the revenues part of it, walk me through that. And disclosure, I am also bought not a massive stack, but a stack of that because I'm like, well, give this a year or two.
Yeah.
This is going to be popping off on Cauldron, you know?
So fun fact, I went back and watched episode 94 while I was getting ready for episode 135. And so there was a segment in there where we were talking about cash tokens, and I had kind of been like, yeah, whatever, and not really. And you said, okay, well, we'll have you back on in a year, and we'll talk about the AFoG token. And I was like, okay,
The Oracle
whatever.
does it again.
You totally called it. Shout out to you for that. Well done. Yeah. So my scruples about cash tokens, going back to what I said in episode 94, has to do with kind of the singular laser focused mindset that I, historically speaking, have had with respect to this whole thing. Like, I am here for one reason. It is peer-to-peer electronic cash, freeing mankind from the tyranny of fiat money and central banking. That's why I'm here. And, you know, strictly speaking, cash tokens and every like NFTs, all the variations of that's really a side quest. That's a tangent to it. So, you know, when cash tokens first started growing in popularity in the BCH community, I wasn't particularly interested in it because it wasn't what I was, you know, focused on. But, you know, I had, so two things. Number one, there are other people in the community, and a lot of other people are excited about this. And that's more eyeballs on BCH. It's more usage of the functionality. It's more people attracted to it and building on it. And that is, you know, unequivocally a good thing. And so by supporting cash tokens, I can support, you know, those kinds of things. But the second reason is I had a lot of people in my DMs like, oh man, you should totally make an AFoG token, you know, cash tokens. And I was like, okay, fine. Let's give it a shot. I spent a couple of months thinking about how I wanted the mechanics of it to work. So I wanted something that would give people an opportunity to kind of participate financially in the success or failure of a fifth of gaming. So, you know, having the burn mechanism where like, hey, the better a fifth of gaming does, the more of these tokens will be removed from existence. So, you know, and this will continue just forever. As long as the project's running, there'll be fewer and fewer of these tokens. Then, you know, people can do with that information whatever they want. If they think it's, you know, it's got interesting potential, they can pick up somebody's tokens, and you know, there will be fewer and fewer of them later, ready to go. And the other side of the coin, I've got a very specific issuance schedule. So that, you know, if you go to fifthofgaming.com/token, the tokenomics of the project are, you know, laid out very specifically, very precisely. Like, here's the number of coins that are going to be just released into the market every month. You can know with certainty how many there will be. And the amount of tokens issued in a given cycle is always a percentage of what hasn't been issued. So the vault will never run dry. It'll just get slower and slower and slower. And the reason I did these kind of two sides of the coin is like, there's now an equilibrium that the token value is always tending towards. So, you know, as long as the issuance rate is exceeding the burn rate, you know, it'll be equilibriuming, it'll be tending towards equilibrium down. And if it's the other way, then it will tend towards equilibrium in the up direction. And, you know, it's been, so I saw a huge spike as soon as I announced it, just way up. And I was like, oh geez. Oh geez. So now, all this hype drove it way up, and it's been kind of steadily tending towards equilibrium on the way down. So I have been very careful to not say to people like, oh man, you should totally buy my tokens. You know, I'm not trying to be a shill or anything. And just like, I want to expand the usage of cash tokens because this is a neat mechanism in the Bitcoin Cash space. The AFoG token is my effort to kind of participate in that. And it's also, looking forward a little ways, I also wanted an AFoG token as a kind of springboard into an expansion of the Bitcoin Cash client functionality. So the Bitcoin Cash client is the NuGet library that I wrote to enable, native Bitcoin Cash payments or a native Bitcoin Cash integration into any .NET application. That's just basic coins moving around. But it would be really cool to upgrade that so that it can, read and write cash token stuff. That would be cool. So, I don't want to commit to anything because that also sounds really hard, but I would love to knock that out sometime in the next year. And, a fifth of gaming, the platform would be, I think, a fantastic test bed for, getting that wired up. Like, hey, I've got this token now, and I will be able to do specific a fifth of gaming tasks with this token on the side. Like, oh, hey, you want to get the special premium package or whatever? Then you can use this AFoG token or an equal amount of BCH. Or maybe it'll be like, hey, here's the backlog of development items. You can throw your support behind specific ideas by, using this token or whatever. So I don't know. It's, I'm just kind of brainstorming on the fly here. Who knows what it'll actually be, but I can see at the very least some sort of cash tokens integration for the BCH client coming up, and the AFoG token will be my excuse for why I need to start working on that.
I love how you're busy trying to sigh up yourself with like, what excuses do I need for what features I need to? I can't just decide I'm the founder and I want to make this. Instead, I got to create this whole rationalization.
And that works. Like, that totally works. So recently, the instant Bitcoin Cash tournament registrations. That's a feature that just rolled out this last month. I wrote in like 2 dev blogs ago, like, all right, I am here publicly committing to like knuckling down and getting this done. And that's great motivation because I don't want to write the next blog and say, oh, hey, I said I was going to do this, but I didn't. So yeah, sigh ourselves. It's effective.
Yes. Public accountability, just like they say with you basically got to put skin in the game. Public accountability is a great way to do it. You can also do it with your stack for anybody who's struggling with any motivation issues. Find someone you really don't like or somebody you really like and you can trust and give them like a stack of your BCH and say, don't give it back to me unless I can prove in X days that I've delivered Y. And suddenly your mind will be thinking a lot about that thing.
I'm not quite ready for that, but yeah, that's the same idea.
The public accountability is essentially the same thing. Okay, so I'm looking right now on Cauldron. So AFoG is actually the number 4 token with 15.5 BCH, which matches up to 8,602 AFoG. And in the last 30 days, it's had 4.06 BCH of trade volume, over 206 trades. Cauldron is amazing. I just got to say, there's been more like going on there since it's been launched. It's still technically in beta.
Yes, it's still in beta. Like, still every time you go to the page, there's a warning at the top, like, hey, this is a beta, like, But I haven't had any problem with it. It's a really smooth experience. Big fan of Cauldron. And it was really neat to like meet those guys in Slovenia, like shake their hands and stuff and talk to them. Like, shout out to Cauldron Quest guys. You're doing awesome. And have you seen, so they've shown like previews of, like the new UI. Yeah, it looks incredible. I'm excited for that to go live whenever that happens.
I was thinking about this before the show, actually, because I was thinking, we had Sushi Swap, right? We had the smart BCH era in 2022, and a lot of that stuff just got kind of copied over from ETH because that was the whole point of it being EVM compatible. Okay, change around the label, maybe, change the theme colors a little bit, and then boom, we had like DEXs and all this stuff that got created like in a couple months that should have taken years and years and years, right? Because we could just open source everything. Now that was great because it got things going fast, but on the other hand, it's also like if you've copied other stuff, you're by definition not really leading the industry, are you? And so now we've got that going on the UTXO side where everything has to be rebuilt. Like Cauldron is like from the ground up. These guys have built all this stuff. So it's taking a little bit longer, but on the other hand, it means they're starting to think, oh, well, what if we just change this? We did it all ourselves. Like,
I love the on-chainness of Cauldron. Like, DeFi it's a really cool concept, very important. Oh, actually, quick aside. I was listening to the episode with you and Matthew where you were like, is the AFoG token like a DeFi? No, it's not. It is the opposite of decentralized. It is the fifth of gaming token, centralized server. It's just me. So DeFi is cool. I just want to delineate between no, this is fully centralized for better or for worse. And in my mind, that's a problem with a lot of the cash tokens and all the Ethereum, ERC20 tokens, all the NFTs and stuff. It's most of it, a lot of it is just centralized stuff, which all the more reason to be excited about something like Cauldron with, everything on chain, all the contracts. I love that.
Yes, it's been fantastic. So I was going to talk to you a little bit about the marketing initiatives then. Is that you've delivered so many dev features. These dev blogs are packed with, I fixed this bug, I shipped this feature, I did this, that, and the other. Obviously, we got the visual update as well, which is kind of a marketing thing, but it's also more like preparation for marketing. In the next year, what's the plan for AFoG? Are we going to get some marketing going?
Yeah, so this is another thing that I struggle with in addition to UI is outreach. So I think I shared the story last time about, my efforts to reach out to the Magic the Gathering community and invite them to play. And the responses that I got were, overwhelmingly just accusations of fraud. This is a scam for sure. And that's a tough hurdle to overcome. I actually ended up talking to a couple of the mods of the main Magic the Gathering Arena subreddit, and they were very courteous and understanding, and they gave me permission to once per week make a post on their subreddit, just inviting people to play in these tournaments. But I stopped doing that even because it was so hostile. I don't want to waste people's time and clutter their forum with stuff they don't want to see. And the return in terms of just people actually coming to the site and participating was very low. So kind of abandoned that. The growth in Magic players has been in large part to the MTGA Daily Challenge. That guy, his name is Red, by the way, great guy. He's a known voice in the Magic community. So when he says, "Hey, I'm running a tournament," people are like, "Oh, okay, yeah, MTGA Daily Challenge is running it." And that kind of, and that's not marketing. That's just sort of word of mouth network building or whatever. Yeah, it's
just reputational.
Reputation, yeah. So the more of that, the better. And that is still I'll call it a productive stream of new users. I'm still getting messages from people who are asking me questions and about getting BCH set up and how to register for tournaments. So still growing in that sense. But historically speaking, if you go back to the beginning of my actively working on tournament stuff and Bitcoin Cash stuff in a fifth of gaming, there has always been some critical feature that we need this right away. Whether it's we need Swiss format tournaments, we need instant BCH registrations, we need embedded Discord chats, we need embedded Twitch streams, there's always something. And recently, the list of urgent things has kind of petered out a bit. Now, obviously, there's still a lot to do, but as far as running a tournament goes, the site is pretty feature complete, I would say. Now, again, there's more to add. I'm not all done here. Lots to do. But this has been kind of a first opportunity that just came up within the last month of okay, what do I want to do with any extra clock cycles and any extra, funds that I can pour into this? And marketing seems like it would be awesome. I don't know what that would look like. I don't know anything about marketing. So if anyone in the audience has marketing ideas, reach out. I'd love to chat.
Yeah, well, I guess it kind of comes to do more of what's working, right? If you've already found an inroad here, then maybe you can accelerate that stuff you're working on with Red, or maybe his reach is also limited, but maybe he knows someone else who runs the StarCraft daily tournament, or there's something else daily tournament. And if not, you can go looking for that person. They must be out there somewhere. And that seems to me more like maybe the way to go. You know, I did when it all launched and stuff. I remember I did put in my like Magic chat group. I put in, those guys are a bit like Jeremy shilling crypto again, but I put in a message about AFoG. I said, this is really cool. I think one or two of them came and tried it out. They didn't have a bad experience or anything, so it was all good. But then I was kind of like, okay, I'm now got to leave this a bit. I can't just be shilling it to them all the time, and I'm really hoping that it'll get to, you know, once AFoG has grown to a significant size, you want to put it in people's mind and then show it to them again when there's been a huge improvement, and suddenly they're like, wow, this is still going, that thing that I heard about, and maybe this time I really got to not miss the train on this, you know? So that's kind of,
The hope is, I mean, so there's a point in a thing like this where you don't need to keep pushing it forward in front of people. Like, it just sort of takes care of it's like, this is a useful thing that people enjoy interacting with. They will talk to other people about it, and suddenly you've got this cascading effect of one person tells 2 people, tells 4 people, tells 8, and so on. And I would love to see that. I hope that happens. Again, coming back to that flywheel of more sponsors, more players, and spinning up, and suddenly it's a big thing. I would also love to see a diversification of the games being played. So, as far as tournaments goes, it's mostly Magic these days. And don't get me wrong, I love Magic. There's my Magic display right there.
Theros Beyond Death, right?
So this,
it's the full art land. Theros Beyond Death.
I have the custom arts for these lands in Magic the Gathering, and I use them in every single deck because this is absolutely gorgeous. This art style here. But yeah, so and I love Magic, but I would love to see more games. So Chad does his chess tournaments from time to time. There's a social guild that plays, non-competitive games. I think they're playing Core Keeper right now. But a Fifth of Gaming can run any kind of game, any game that exists on IGGB.com. You can run a Fifth of Gaming guild on it. So I'd love to see a diversification there, which actually is one of the motivations behind the big Costco hot dog world tour, which is, firing off this month. So we'll be playing Risk of Rain 2 for that. So, the more eyeballs that look at a Fifth of Gaming and see, hey, there's a diversity of communities here playing a diversity of intensities. Like, some are playing hardcore competitions and some are just playing a relaxing get together for an evening, play a game kind of thing. More games, more genres, the better. So trying to make the site, game agnostic, but also with enough features that it's useful.
Yeah, it occurs to me that obviously adding different games is helpful, but it's also partly a problem in that it somewhat fractures your existing network effect, of having people in a tournament and getting people matched up to play, right? Yes.
So, obviously I have had a lot of attention on Magic stuff. And one of the things I have been thinking about is like, okay, what do other Magic the Gathering tournament sites do that I don't? Now, I have an advantage over those in some senses, like the prize payouts being instant anywhere in the world. They cannot do that. And I've seen some of the big tournaments. They'll have it's like a $2,000 or $3,000 prize pool, and you look at the rules for this prize payout, and it'll say something like the tournament organizer promises to send the money to the winners within 60 days of the tournament ending. And I'm like, wow, okay. Hey, a Fifth of Gaming, you can do it in 60 milliseconds if you want, or you can wait 60 days. That's cool, I guess. So in some regards, I have a competitive advantage over the other platforms in the space. But in others, I don't. Like other, Magic the Gathering tournament platforms will have things like, deck uploads, and they'll have cool graphic breakdowns of like what colors match up well against what in this event, and, things like that. And certainly I could build out those things, but that's getting really down into the Magic the Gathering rabbit hole when I'm trying to build a game agnostic platform. And so there's a trade-off somewhere of like, okay, do I want to be, wide or deep with respect to what I'm working on? And I don't know what the correct answer for that is or anything. It's just one of the realities that I'm facing right now.
Well, it might be worth just playing with it. Do a couple of small things, see if it really helps your growth in Magic, and if so, keep pursuing. I mean, there's no reason it couldn't end up just being this huge smash hit in Magic, and then afterwards, you're kind of like, wait a second, guys.
And by the way, it also does
10,000 daily users. You can also play anything up because gamers like to game, right? So they'll naturally find their way onto other things as well too. But I mean, I just in thinking about that, I also thought, well, you also have a bit of a competitive advantage in one sense in that you're in the BCH ecosystem more broadly, right? Which the whole thing doesn't have a lot of network effect, but we can all coordinate, right? So I haven't got around to it yet. I wonder if it's maybe in the next release or the release after, we're going to be putting some stuff in the Explore tab, which I'm hoping will include AFoG and stuff like that. So then we can boost up your network effect a little bit by integrating it with other BCH projects. So that's another avenue you could look in, maybe if you push a bit harder on getting integrated with other BCH wallets or other BCH related stuff, right?
Yeah. Hey, any developers in the community who are interested in getting any of the, otherwise publicly available data in AFoG, let me know if there's a new endpoint that's needed or whatever. I will absolutely do that for you, and you can embed this info into whatever app you're building.
Yeah. Okay, let's chat a little bit then. I thought we could just do a quick segment because I think this is a good example use case of starting up a bootstrapped product and company, right? We've been talking about AFoG a lot specifically, but I was thinking, well, I've made the podcast and you've made AFoG, and maybe both of them started out as just us in a room with a bit of an idea. And I think BCH is at a point where hopefully we're starting to attract the attention of more and more people who are at that same point, right? We see it all the time in Telegram. People, I really love BCH. I'm excited about this. I want to do something. How do you get from it's just me and my laptop and some passion to an actual working product? What have you found along the road?
Yeah, so I would want to quickly right off the bat say that I believe I had a leg up in this purely because it was a Bitcoin Cash project. I have had just an enormous amount of support from the Bitcoin Cash community because they are excited about AFoG as a kind of real world example of BCH utility. And that support has come in a lot of forms. It's been people just popping in to play a tournament. It has been, encouraging messages. It has been just in person. I've received, fantastic advice from you, from Emergent Reasons, from Jonathan Silverblood, just advice on how to move forward with this and things to keep an eye out for, that sort of thing. And realistically, of course, also just donations. There have been a couple of occasions where I have said, hey guys, I am trying to pull together a big tournament. Would really appreciate any financial support. You guys want to throw some money into the prize pool? And I have been blown away by the support. Thousands of dollars have poured into, like the one we did in March, the March 15th Magic tournament. We had it was like $2,700 or something for this huge tournament, which was incredible. So starting with that, if this was just cutting BCH out of the picture entirely, if I was just starting with just a fifth of gaming, I'm going to run tournaments, I strongly believe probably it would not have got off the ground at all. That support from the community has been very valuable. But setting that aside, or with that said, I think you got to start with an idea, which those are tough to generate. Obviously, good ideas.
I don't know. People.
Well, okay. I'm sorry.
Jeremy, I've got an idea. Blah blah blah.
Sorry. Okay. So the idea plus the next thing is tough. So idea plus MVP. You have to have something that you can put in front of people and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about this idea. I've been working on it. Here's a very crude of what this thing might look like. What do you think about it?" And if you go back, that's what I did, last September. Now I had again another little advantage because I actually started working on a fifth of gaming back in 2018, and over the course of those several years, I did a lot of the infrastructure stuff, user accounts and authentication, all the security, the architecture of the application. I built all that stuff years ago So when I had the idea, which triggered by your episode with Beachad, I already had a platform that I could start building on and just adding this tournament features and the BCH integration. But getting that MVP and putting it in front of people is very important because number one, if it's a terrible idea, like, you know, objectively, it's just bad. If you have good, honest friends, they'll tell you that it's bad. Like, it's like just, you know, I love you, bro, but this isn't good. Or they'll say, oh, no, this is actually cool. This is neat, but XYZ. And if you start getting a stream of feedback from people, especially people who come back and keep using it, that's incredible because that will help you prioritize. Well, number one, it'll help you decide if this is worth pursuing. But number two, it'll help you prioritize, okay, what's the next most important thing? Like in those days, like very early AFoG days, I was receiving feedback. Like, for example, I had player wallets. Like I was able to do instant registrations in those days because I fully controlled players' coins. AFoG used to be a custodial wallet solution, and someone, I think it was actually Tula who said this to me. Is like, you need to get rid of that. Like, that's bad. And so that was, you know, suddenly my top priority. And so that was what I posted in devlog number 2 was like, player wallets are gone. Here's how it works now. I at no point am controlling anyone's coins other than mine, like the session wallets. So that's how you get going, I think. At least that's how I got the ball rolling. Is I had this platform, I had this idea spawned by this episode of the BCH podcast, and, you know, talking to you afterwards, and I was like, I think I can do that. Like all the components involved, like I need a challenge API, I know how to do that. I need BCH integration. I have already built the library for that. I need a platform. I've already got one of those. Just plugging all these pieces together and then showing it to people. And it's just been one step after another since then. And here we are. Not that this is like some, you know, amazing world-changing success story, but progress has been made.
Well, that's right. You've got this far. So I think there's a few elements I want to throw into the story here. So the first thing is, you need an idea, but the idea, I've heard this idea that it's not so much that an idea is good as you need to have good founder idea synergy. You need to have an idea that is good for you, and that will be different for every different person. There's no, you know, a good idea with the wrong person driving it is gonna suck, right? So you need to be thinking about, what am I genuinely passionate about, because this is something you're going to be doing for a long time. So pick a very big vision with something that you're really excited about and figure out your idea there. Now the second thing is, you're going to need to do basically all the work to start, because it's just you and you're bootstrapping, and we're assuming you don't have billions in VC capital, and you probably wouldn't know how to get it even if you could somehow, right? So forget about that. Just worry about you right now with your budget of $50. You are going to need an idea, and you're going to need to be willing to do the work. Now, what does that mean? You do need to create something, like you said, but I think a lot of people will get off track with thinking, okay, I'm not a software developer, I can't make an MVP, and that's completely wrong. You can make something, even if it's just you draw some diagrams on paper, you write out a flowchart of how this would work, you make a sales plan of your top 10 things that you would need to do, you make a list of write a one-page document explaining in the end how great this project is going to be. Do something. Create some proof of work before you go and try and tell it to other people, because the idea or the execution might suck, but the passion will be there, and you're serious. That will help the message get through to somebody that is going to start out skeptical. So that is really important.
So there is a cliche scenario among software engineers, and I'm going to venture a speculation that both of you have experienced this before, where someone in your network will come to you and say, I got a great idea for an app. You build it. I'll be the ideas guy. I'll take my cut.
Business guy. No, everyone's the business guy.
Business guy. Like conceptually, okay, fine. But like you said, show me the proof of work. Show me that you understand this, you're passionate about it, and you have put the work in to, convince yourself and me that this is a good idea that is worth investing precious time in. That's the correct approach. So yeah, +1 to what you said about like, you don't have to be an engineer for this, but be cautious approaching your engineer friends with your great idea. Make sure that you have done your homework.
That's right. And I mean, but it's like the joke is that people come to you and they said, I'm going to be the business guy. And the reason is because they know they can't be a dev, but they think they can be the business guy, even though they have no experience in either, right? So the problem is that a business guy is not just people are like, well, there was Wozniak and Steve Jobs. Well, Steve Jobs is one of the greatest product designers and fucking salesmen of all time. Did he show up to Wozniak and say, I'm going to be the business guy? No, I bet he rocked up with like a bunch of his cash and was like, I'm going to fund the first freaking computer that you need to play with and whatever. Like, he was already bringing some hype, you know. It's not just hype really, but you got to be bringing some substance as well. You got to be
substance,
if you're the business guy, that means it's all like Eduardo in The Social Network. If you're the business guy, that means your bankroll should be paying for it, not the devs. As soon as you need to be coming and saying, I've got 2 weeks worth of funding, and if you don't have that funding, get a job and save it up and then start your idea, right? So this is really important. Then you got to understand your own skill set, right? So this is what we're getting to here. Everyone's different. Some people are younger, some people are older, some people have worked in careers already, some people haven't, some people are, passionate about this brand new technology for which nothing exists or whatever it is. So you've got to think, what are my skill sets? So start there because you already have those. And for everyone, it will be something. You're going to be passionate about something, have specific domain knowledge about it. You might be into design. You might be into dev stuff. You might be into marketing and sales. You might be into, I don't know, whatever, community building, social stuff, event planning, whatever it is. Figure out where you've got an edge and start with that. And then be willing to know, okay, I'm also going to need to add some new skills in. So part of this, starting this project, is I'm going to have to learn some new stuff. Instead of saying, I need a dev, I need a sales guy, I need an event manager, I need a graphic artist, maybe just think, well, I've got to be the graphic artist. And then, especially now with AI, like that's a huge open field. You're not going to make the world's best thing, but you can make something to get started and then iterate from there. I think that's another key point in this whole sort of journey. And then collaborators will start appearing once you've got some proof of work going. You're not going to be selling people, they're going to start coming to you. And that's when you've really got something going, right?
Yeah, and I had that experience myself. So I have had, over the course of the last 6 years or so, probably 6 or 8 devs that were just in my network. They're people that I worked with, or old friends from college or whatever, who have seen this and like, this is really neat. Like, I want to participate, and they have just donated their time and incredible talents to making AFoG better, which was amazing. And I think, that comes back to what you were saying about, like, if you have a good idea with a passionate, like the right person behind it, when they talk about it, their eyes light up and they're all excited about what they're doing and what's coming next. And that's infectious. Not to ring my own bell, but I think I'm that. Like, when I tell people about A Fifth of Gaming, I tell people about the client and stuff and all the people who are using it and stuff, I get all bubbly and joyful about it, and that gets them excited. So that aspect is also important, I think, of, people seeing you excited and wanting to contribute to it, whatever that looks like. And also, the right person in the right place with the right idea is also important.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, I think that was good. I think, it's just not that this show is going to be, the VC investing hub or anything like that, but I think the BCH community is at a stage right now where there's a bit of network effect going. Okay, and then there's another thing, one last point on this, is do it in public. Build something public. This has 2 functions. Firstly, if you do it publicly, you're going to be pretty motivated to improve. Okay, if you're making your MVP in your room and you don't show it to anybody because you think it's not ready yet or something like that, you are screwing yourself. Because if you put it out publicly, you might actually be embarrassed about it. That's a good thing. Don't run away from that. That means you need to put it out there, because then you'll be like, oh God, this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is wrong. And suddenly you're iterating. Whereas if it's in your little space, all saved on your hard drive, you're not going to feel that public pressure of the world watching,
It's safe there. It's safe on your hard drive, but that's not how it's going to grow. And I had this exact experience. Like, again, back in September, I wanted to do like a big splashy Magic the Gathering tournament to just kind of like introduce this. That was the alpha version at that time. I went into that with the expectation that something would go wrong, like something would blow up, because I hadn't done a single like out in the real world tournament yet. And sure enough, you know how AFoG works. Like it's automated. There's a start time, and once that start time hits, bang, it's going. Like you can't like, oh wait, I'm not ready yet. No, it goes. When that happened for this time, the site instantly crashed. Like everything was down, everything was broken, and I was like, oh. And there's 30 people in Discord like watching me fail publicly. But if I do say so myself, I do have a very good DevOps pipeline. So I was able to pop in to the code, found the problem, fixed it, pushed it, and it was up and running in 10-15 minutes. But boy, I was sweating bullets when the thing went down instantly when it started. But that kind of thing is important. Like you said, get out there with your MVP, bare bones, basic. This is a manifestation of this idea in a usable form. There's going to be problems for sure. There will be features that are missing. There will be bugs that pop up, but put them on the backlog and prioritize them as appropriate, and then keep on coding, keep on going.
Yeah, and you're not Mr. Beast, that's the other thing as well. People think, okay, I don't need to put this out there because it's not ready yet. But once it's ready, once I fix this up, I'm going to put it out there, and holy crap, the whole world is going to be looking. No, they're not. You've been lucky if you get 3 people and one of them is your mum to look at it, right? So you don't need to be worried about it. It's going to be embarrassing for you with a couple of people, but they're mostly going to understand. They're just going to be like, okay, this is your new thing that you're trying out. So you just have to get through that phase, but nobody's going to care as much as you think that they will, basically.
Let me share a short and a little bit embarrassing story to help make your point. There was a feature that I deployed to A Fifth of Gaming a long time ago, like probably 2020 maybe, which was support for multiple guilds running simultaneously, which, believe it or not, was a novel concept at the time. The very first versions of A Fifth of Gaming was just me and my friends. There was no guilds. This was just a site for us. Like adding this concept of lots of people can have guilds. They can all run their game nights concurrently, independently of each other, and AFoG will take care of all that stuff. So this was hard. I had to rewrite a lot of things, refactor a lot of stuff, new database tables, all this stuff. When it was finally done, like a couple of weeks, I was working on this in my free time. I deployed it, builds completing. I was like, all right, I'm going to take a quick break for lunch. I went, had a burger and fries or whatever for lunch. I came back and there were no new guilds. And I had this moment of I'm a little disappointed. I thought for sure, people would just flocked to this thing, but no, like I said, no one notices. You're not Mr. Beast. You're not anyone famous. I'm just some guy. I deployed this thing some dark corner of the internet. No one knows about it. So yeah, don't be shy about getting out there. No one's going to see it. No one's going to look at it. If any problems come up, just fix them in the next deploy. And when someone does look at it, whether it's by invitation or whether they stumble across it, any feedback that they give is worth its weight in gold. It's so valuable. Yeah, liquid gold. Anything that someone takes the time to look at your thing and they care about it enough to give you feedback, that's...
Write that down.
Yeah, absolutely. Write it down. Give it backlog.
If you're not Elon Musk, whatever they say, just do it. Don't argue with them. Don't say, oh, no, but I think the users don't. You're talking to the users.
You're talking to the users, yes.
If the users tell you that, the customer is always right, the user is always right. That's another thing that I think people often, when they're starting, yes, over time, you will have some judgment. You will yourself be more experienced and be able to assess, okay, some of the users want this, some of the users want that. We have to make a trade-off or whatever. But when you're starting out, you don't know what you're doing. And if the user says, this sucks, fix this, just do it, because one user is infinitely better than you, who is 0. You're in the system, so you definitely don't know what the user needs, but the user knows. So yeah, just listen to them, write down everything that they say, obsessively write it down, and then fix it, and then go back to them and say, hey, I fixed this thing, will you look at it again? Then you also build trust with that user, and you'll get more feedback from it. So even if they're completely wrong, which they probably aren't, but even if they are, just building that trust and getting them to buy into your project will help you get more feedback and more interested users over time. Okay, that's enough for Startup Hub here on the podcast. Let's go from the small to the big. The Trump election. So this last week, we had the historic, I guess you could say, second election of Donald Trump in an absolutely massive wipeout of the Democrat Party in the US. Now, before we get onto this, I've got to make a couple points. The first is probably I would guess that most of my listeners are sort of Trump favoring, or at the very least forced to choose between the two, they would pick Trump. But I understand that a lot of people are also apolitical, or like, I'm not in the US, or I'm not involved, or who cares about politicians. Well, I got to tell you, that's not a winning strategy, right? The game is going to be played one way or another, and if you refuse to play, that just means you miss out on the spoils getting divided in your direction, right? Politics is a real thing, and this matters a lot, especially when it comes to crypto. And there's also a lot we can learn here, because it's just politics and marketing is the exact same in us trying to spread BCH as it is for anyone else in the world, right? So that's really important. And the second thing that I wanted to say is, which is now just slipping my mind. Yeah, I don't know.
So
anyway,
I can make a quick comment on that. I saw a comic recently. It was two frogs in a kettle of water, and one said to the other one, "Does it seem to you like the water's getting warmer?" And the second frog said, I don't talk about politics. Like, yeah. I can appreciate that sentiment. Like, these things are going to happen. Like, decisions are going to be made in the country that you live. And, you have some responsibility to at least pay attention to it and, take action if necessary.
Yes. And for any of my listeners, I understand I might even have some listeners who, I certainly would. The show's big enough that there will be some who are more Democrat favoring, or were, upset, or didn't not pleased with the results or something. That's also completely fine. But just to keep in mind that in this case, Trump won, right? So he was doing something right, at least for the current moment in time. And it's pretty undeniable the impact that he has had around the world. So I'm not here to say that Donald Trump is a perfect guy and he's, the best thing since sliced bread. But I think there's a lot that the BCH community can learn from and read into this historic election. So let's talk about a few elements of that. Also, if you want to know a lot about this, I highly recommend the All In podcast, who have a great panel of 4 guys that are heavily involved. They literally know all the candidates themselves, and they're involved in all this shit, and they are great with a spread of opinions. But Donald Trump won the US elections, and one of the biggest stories was Polymarket, which has been one of the breakout crypto apps in this election cycle, because people have been talking about, we've talked about on the show, prediction markets for a while, but crypto has made it a reality. And this Polymarket, which runs on Polkadot or Polygon chain or something like that, has been absolutely huge, and it's got so much attention, and there's millions of dollars changing hands all the time. And in fact, it was super accurate for the election results. I have a screenshot here of when Trump was at 70% and Kamala was at 30%, and Trump's odds just are going straight up and Kamala's straight down. And at that moment, I was like, Trump has won. I messaged a couple of my friends, said, it's over, Trump's won, that's it. And then over the next few hours, Polymarket got to 99%. And then over, 8 hours later than that, or 12 hours later than that, you had the sort of legacy media, CNN and whoever, starting to be like, okay. But even then, they weren't sure. The New York Times, I don't know. It still hangs a bit in the balance, blah, blah, blah. And then a couple more days of cope. And then they finally were like, okay, it's over now. So it's just such a clear example of markets being more efficient at finding information and aggregating information than media is, right? This was just an incredible thing to watch.
Yeah, 100% agree. The advent of Polymarket coming, news sources were sharing this, which is, it's amazing. And, you've talked in the past about, true adoption happens when people don't realize they're using cryptocurrency. This is an example of that. Like, they don't know what's going on behind this graph. It's just, money moving around in smart contracts on a blockchain that they don't know about or understand or whatever. And hey, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, no, it's been absolutely incredible to see. And I think we definitely need a prediction market on BCH by next cycle. Now, BCH Bull is kind of getting there. BCH Guru is also kind of getting there. Of course, somebody new might appear to start it up. I might have to start it myself if nobody else gets around to it. But this is a begging an opportunity, because any crypto chain that doesn't have a competitor to this is going to be like, it's going to be a use case. Because I had my BCH, I was sitting there at 70 cents thinking, God, I would just put like a bunch on Trump right now and just easily make a little bit of money. But I don't want to go mess around with this other, coin and figure out all the details. Like, I'm not involved in whatever their market is. So if somebody had a BCH one ready to go, I would have just been straight in there. And I think that's actually super important for the BCH community, especially with cash tokens. It would be brilliant. But the other big element to this is that running on an anti-crypto platform, I feel like, is never going to be viable again. Like, crypto was not a central issue necessarily to this US election, but I would say it was topical. It was definitely in the mix, maybe not top 5, but probably top 15 things. We've got here some stats that in the House of Reps, 219 pro-crypto candidates got in and 106 anti-crypto, and in the Senate, 14 in and 9 out. These are not necessarily the final numbers, but these were just some numbers that I saw as the election was going on. So crypto is like in the majority pretty clearly. And as I've been saying on this show, it's not going to be viable. Like, the next election, crypto won't be a topic because everyone on all sides will have to be pro-crypto. Like, it would only be a negative to ever bring it up as like, we've got to regulate crypto, we've got to tax crypto or screw around with crypto, right? Am I wrong in that?
I hope so. I mean, I look at these numbers and it gives me, reason for optimism. Whenever politics and politicians come up, I always have sort of a thread of cynicism that goes through everything that I think or talk about. The classic politician play is, I'm going to say whatever lies I need to tell to get into office, I will do that. And then, once I'm in office, okay, well, now I can do whatever I want. Now, I'm not saying that's the case here. It's certainly, I would say, if nothing else, it is encouraging that politicians believe that they had to lie about crypto, because that says something to kind of the vibe of the population as a whole. So my hope would be that if there are, I'll say, unjustified weaponization of the legal system against crypto projects that are like genuinely, working on non-scammy things, I would love to see the population of America cry out against that. Like, that is unjust. Roger Ver is a topical example of that. Like, he is being persecuted unjustly by the American judicial system, and I would like to see outrage from people about that. Ross Ulbricht, I think, is a more visible, more known example of that. And famously, Donald Trump made that promise recently. He said, on day one, I will pardon Ross. And libertarians and, anyone leaning in that direction, like, well, that's fantastic. He is in jail, as they say, for making this website. Now, I don't know the whole Ross Ulbricht story. But the vibe that I'm getting is that he's more on the like freedom loving side of things than the tyranny side of things. So, he gets a, thumbs up in my book. But I will be interested to see how this plays out. Like, is Donald Trump going to keep that promise? I have seen posts already on Twitter of people like tagging him, calling out to him, like, you promised, you said you would do this. We want to see you follow through with it.
Yeah, there's definitely a big spectrum. And I think on one hand, yes, politicians are going to lie, right? So I'm not expecting that all this stuff that Donald Trump promised, part of which was, I'm going to free Ross Ulbricht in day one, and that became sort of the the key issue for a segment of like broader libertarian political activism and stuff. But a lot of other stuff he said, like, we're going to end the war on crypto, we're going to fire Gary Gensler, we're going to make some other, you know, changes, make crypto more easy to use as money. Like, he said a lot of stuff. Is he going to deliver on all of that? No. But at the same time, is he going to deliver on none of that? Probably also no. And I've seen some people who say, oh, you know, Donald Trump, you're just all being scammed by politicians again. Anybody who says, like, this is a win. And that's just naive doomerism in the opposite direction, okay? Just because politicians lie and scam, they don't literally do nothing. Some stuff does get done, right? So you've got to be pragmatic about a win's a win, right? So I think I'm hopeful that Ross will get out. Some people are like, it's a lock, he's definitely going to do it, it's so easy, he just signs on the paper and it's done. I don't know about that so much. I think, you know, a lot can change between now and January, but I'm really do hope that he does get out. But I think overall, everybody should just take heart in the fact that as a crypto community, it seems that the political voice is growing louder, and even if it is only in the time before the election happens, knowing that it's a bad idea to fuck with the crypto industry is a big win from our point of view. So
taking a step back, Donald Trump is to put it mildly, polarizing figure in the United States. There are people here that are psychotically anti-Trump, and there are people here that are psychotically pro-Trump. And I, in my own mind, am also, you know, somewhat polarized. There are things about Donald Trump that I really do not like. Like I would not call myself a Donald Trump supporter. And in fact, the day that he won the Republican primary in 2016 is the same day that I stopped identifying myself as a Republican. I was like, oh, if this is the guy that represents this party, then clearly this party doesn't represent me. Which, to be fair, that was probably for my benefit, because that started me on this whole journey that, you know, I had to kind of soberly face the reality of the differences between, you know, the things that the Republican Party pretends to care about and the things that they actually do when they're in office. And I ended up, you know, thinking about myself and what my political ideology actually is. And I happily landed at libertarianism, which, you know, now I don't have to care about elections because I know I'm going to lose all of them anyway. So this is, you know, it's kind of a nice perk. But so there are things about a second Donald Trump presidency that I am nervous about. You know, there's a famous Supreme Court case, you know, Trump versus the United States, where the premise of the case was Donald Trump and his lawyers made the argument that, you know, any action that is performed kind of in the official capacity of the office of the president is not subject to any prosecution. Like there's complete immunity. And, you know, people who were observing this case were like, well, that's patently ridiculous. Like, you know, the United States is a nation of laws, not men. We don't have kings. There's no one who's above the law in principle. But the Supreme Court found 6-3 that no, actually the president he's immune. Like he can do whatever he wants in the presidency. I don't care who the president is. That is unsettling to me. But, you know, and there are other things like, you know, I'm sorry, if you have Trump supporters, Trump is a grifter. Like he has a history of scamming people, grifting people. Just like last month, he had that like World Federal Reserve industry, like what was it? World Financial something or other, this WFI token. It was, and he was like, oh yeah, totally buy this, and it's the future of, and we're going to go against the banks and blah blah blah. It's just a scam token. Like if you look at the fine print, 75% of the revenue generated goes to the Trump family. The other 25% goes to some like LLC in Puerto Rico or whatever. It is not possible to move the tokens. They're just locked on chain until this project decides that you're allowed to move them. It doesn't do anything. It's, you know, pull Donald Trump out of there and put anyone else in there. Keep everything else the same. You'd look at that and be like, that's a fraud. That's scam. That is a grift. And if you go to their website, it says like, oh, this you know, financial institution is inspired by Donald Trump. Like none of the family members actually, they're all listed on the team members, like, and Donald Trump is there as like the chief crypto advocate or something, but they don't do anything. This is just a way for them to cash in on their Trump personality cult and steal money from their followers. Now, let me quickly put some stuff on the other side of the scale. So not a Trump fan, but again, coming into this second term, there, I believe, are also reasons for optimism. So we've just been talking about some of the promises that Donald Trump has made with respect to, being pro crypto, pro development of the cryptocurrency space. He said things like, "Oh, we're gonna make all the bitcoins in the United States." So clearly, he doesn't understand this in any meaningful sense. But the fact that he's enthusiastic about it, okay, great. And saying things like, "We're gonna, free political prisoners like Ross Ulbricht who are unjustly being held." Okay, fantastic. But there are other reasons that I am, cautiously optimistic. There are people that are around Donald Trump currently that he has surrounded himself with that I am a fan of. So I have said to my wife on several occasions, the government needs to have more engineers in it. The kinds of problems that the government engages with are complicated and they have a lot of variables, and efficiency is very important because these are real people with real lives whose money and well-being hangs in the balance of these decisions being made. And politicians, bless their little cotton socks, are not good at thinking about hard problems. They're good at wearing suits and lying to people. That's how politicians get power. Engineers are good at engaging with challenging problems and solving them in, there's no perfect solution, but in like good ways. The idea of Elon Musk having like, a cabinet position or whatever, like this Department of Government Efficiency. And, I've seen all these tweets from him about like, slashing, like making it easier to build things and start businesses. And like, that sounds amazing. Like if that comes about, I will be excited. I'm, thinking back to, I don't know if you guys have seen the picture of the first generation Raptor engine that goes into SpaceX Falcons, and then the third one. These two side by side. This one is a tangled, complicated mess of components and valves and all this stuff, and this one is sleek and elegant and also way more powerful. That is the product of really good engineers thinking about complicated problems. That first picture is the government today. Like that is, and the government today is even worse than that. It's like a tangled, complicated mess of bureaucracy and just laws, like so many laws. Famous quote, I don't know, some famous, very old person said that, a dying empire accumulates laws the way a dying man accumulates remedies. I believe that is the situation in the United States. We have so many laws. Everything is illegal. Like it's crazy. So I would love to see that, trimmed back a little bit. And someone like Elon is, I think, would be good to have in the mix for that. But other people, like I like JD Vance. He seems cool. Vivek, he's fantastic. Listening to him talk about stuff, I love that. Ron Paul apparently is in the conversation again. And if he imagine if the new Federal Reserve Chairman was Ron Paul. Like that would just be, would be just incredible.
And the Fed, he's just
and the Fed. So
out of here.
Yeah, I don't know. So, I try to come into these things, and generally speaking, and I say this, to my wife all the time. She gets sick of me saying it. It's all pros and cons. Every situation you go into, everything that you're dealing with, it's all pros and cons. Going into a second Trump term. In my mind, there's a lot of pros, there's a lot of cons. I said to my wife beforehand, I believe, like financially speaking, a Donald Trump presidency is better for us. Like, he will be lax on corporations, taxes will probably go down, like all that kind of stuff. And that has been borne out already. Like, as you have on these slides here, crypto pumped as soon as he won, and the stock market yesterday. The American stock market finished its best week of the whole year just on the news of his victory. So, obviously, can't predict the future. I don't know what's going to happen, but I believe there are reasons to be excited and reasons to be cautious. I can imagine a scenario where Trump now has all this unbridled power and he becomes a tyrant. He has actively bragged about how he's going to weaponize the justice system against his political enemies, which is incredibly dangerous and scary. But
to be fair,
there's also reasons to be
weaponized
optimistic
against him.
Right. Yeah, see, that's the problem. See, what I would love to see is it not being weaponized against anyone. It would be cool if the justice system was like, pursuing justice. That would be really neat. Maybe I'm just old-fashioned that way.
No. Well, I hope he doesn't go crazy with trying to jail everyone and stuff. For the most part, he didn't last time, so I think that's maybe.
I believe that was probably just rhetoric to fire up his, the psychotics that are on his side. Lock her up, lock everyone up. It's okay, just cast your vote and then go back to your job and continue on with life.
Exactly. Reality is usually a bit more underwhelming than the hype. But on this point about the market, I wanted to touch on that quickly, actually, because I think it was important that BTC set an all-time high, and that also was a big story. Everyone, Trump got elected and now Bitcoin's at an all-time high. But it didn't really get that far, really. It got a couple $1,000s over the mark, and that was it. I was briefly for a moment, I was like, is this it? Is this going to be the euphoria? Is it going to moon straight to 100K? But then it didn't. And I thought, it's the same thing I've been saying. There's no retail adoption. It's hard to get sustained euphoria. And no matter what amazing, great news comes out for crypto, it can still barely get Bitcoin past an all-time high, right? I just don't think we're going to be seeing these. And everybody was sitting there in March saying, after the halvening, we're going to be at the end of the year. The bull run's going to be in full swing. The 4-year cycle, blah, 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 blah. Not really, right?
Not really. It's, Donald Trump, during the course of his campaign, said, I think a couple of times, some variation of we're interested in creating a Bitcoin reserve or something. And at one point he did an interview where he said something like, maybe we'll cancel our $35 trillion of debt. We'll just, give him a little Bitcoin or whatever. It's okay, my guy, you don't know what you're talking about. And that's fine. It's okay to be ignorant, but speaking loudly about something that you don't understand, you should, I don't know, maybe reel it in a little bit. But
that's just politics.
We'll see how it goes. It's politics.
It's just buzzword soup. This is one of the most bullish things for crypto in the history of everything, and why it always keeps winning is because even just the fact that people just keep saying Bitcoin, 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 Bitcoin. Eventually, the NPCs go, Bitcoin must be good. I've heard about it.
Must be good. I heard it so much. I would love to hear substance, though. Do you remember when Callisti went to the Bitcoin conference that Trump spoke at and was ended up getting on Fox News afterwards, interviewed him and stuff? One of the things he said in that interview was, I would have loved to have heard something substantive. He didn't say anything, meaningful. It's just kind of, like you said, buzzword soup. And I have the same sentiment. Here are these politicians on both sides. Again, in the intro to this podcast, there's a new enemy out there. It's crypto. Warren Buffett. There's politicians on both sides of this railing against it. No one understands it. I don't know. I mean, the understanding will come inevitably. The more ubiquitous it becomes, more people will have to understand it. But it's a weird state to be in.
Yes, well, we've got meme of the week here, which touched on this perfectly. This was from the BCH Telegram group. Somebody was talking about crypto, as a demographic influencing the election. And Justice Ranvier, shout out to them, a longtime Bitcoin OG who has recently come back to the BCH community, commented and said, as much as enjoy the Trump bump, it was probably the Amish turning out in never before seen numbers in Pennsylvania who swung the election rather than crypto users. And then Journal Football replied with, actually, the real key demographic was Amish crypto bros. And I just love that. That's so on point.
As a mental image, it's fantastic. And obviously, I've been to Pennsylvania a bunch of times, and I lived in Ohio. That's also Amish country. it's not uncommon just to see a horse and buggy on the road, and you have to like kind of carefully go around them and stuff. You don't want to spook the horses or whatever. And just kind of the mental image of one of these guys like pulling their smartphone out.
He's on Polymarket.
He's on Polymarket, and he's like, "Yeah, I definitely want Trump to win, so I can use my peer-to-peer electronic cash for selling my eggs and freshly squeezed milk or whatever." So, yeah, I love it too. It's fantastic.
Yeah, well, it just goes to show, demographics are really just a filtering process, and it's like the Venn diagram, where is the critical demographic? It seems to have been sort of largely young men, perhaps, in this election, and maybe also some respects the, Asian and Hispanic votes as well, too. But I think it's just crypto as a whole is just infiltrating more and more of society, and the bits that it's already heavily entrenched in are perhaps also the crypto favoring bits. So I'm feeling really optimistic that in 4 years' time, crypto won't even be a political topic. It'll be, how are we managing crypto?
Yeah.
More regulated or less regulated. It's not going to be, can we stop this? Can we ban it? Can we whinge about it? That's just not going to be, there'll be too much money in.
Yeah. I am afraid of CBDCs, and I hope that as crypto becomes more and more a mainstream topic of conversation in political discussions, that we as a population, both the American population and a global population, can recognize the danger in absolutely surveilled currency and rail against it. Like, if you politician go for this, you will be voted out immediately, and we just will not tolerate it. I hope that is the case, but we'll see how it goes. Mankind has disappointed me in the past, but I will continue, like Aaron Day, like he's fantastic. Like him, at every opportunity, I will speak against it, and hopefully we together can avoid this problem.
To be fair, we've got through basically all of 2024 without us all getting wrecked by CBDCs.
Yeah, hey,
it might
every year
happen
we
in
make
2025.
It, so we win.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. It's kind of like waiting for the penny to drop, but to be fair, it hasn't all, rocked out as quickly as it could have in the worst possible timeline, it seems. So, it feels like, yeah, okay, maybe we got a breather. And then if we can get through 2025, we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. I'm not as stressed about an imminent CBDC appearing from nowhere to wreck us all as I was maybe a year ago, because we're constantly making progress. And so the longer it takes before the hammer really drops, the better.
Yeah, the better.
If it ends up being a bit of a nothing burger where something comes out but it sucks and people are already on crypto, well then that's great. Give us long enough, we can get there.
Yeah.
Okay. Something else that I saw in the news this week: the Ethereum Foundation released their 2024 report on their own activities, which I found fascinating. So they have $970 million in their treasury, nearly $1 billion, of which 80% of it is ETH basically, and the rest is, I don't know, bags that they've cashed out basically. And they spend $134.9 million per year. So in 2023 they spent 134 million, and that means, so they have in theory 7 years of runway, right? Assuming the price of ETH doesn't moon, which basically extends their runway, and assuming their burn rate remains the same, which it probably will, because once people get their hands in the money, they're not going to be like, stop giving us money, I assume. But this was really interesting because you can take a look at some of these numbers. So what are they spending it on? So the biggest amount, 35.2%, $47.4 million went to new institutions. I'm not even sure what that is. Their 25% of it, 34 million, went to layer 1 R&D. So that would be their core devs and everything. Community development, which I guess marketing and whatever, 12.5%, 16.9 million. Applied zero knowledge tech, 11%, 14.8 million. Internal ops, 7.7%, 10 million. So, okay, sounds like the ETH Foundation paying itself pretty good. The developer platform, 6.5%, 8.7 million. Not too sure what that is. And layer 2 R&D, 1.4%, 1.9 million. Now, this is just a fascinating report because I was looking at this thinking, holy goodness, if the BCH community got 135 mil airdropped into it in a year, like how much good stuff we could do. But on the other hand, this is the ETH community's money that they got by building an ecosystem that pumped their price to the moon, right? It's not like some outsider is coming in to give them this money. Like we basically need to earn our way into a similar, like literally earn our way into a similar position. And so them being ahead of us in that sense, I just thought it was an interesting opportunity to reflect on when they're well in the future, you know, what can we do to get there to match up to them, and sort of what are they doing right and wrong? Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah. So these numbers are staggering, you know, coming from the perspective of like someone who's been developing the Bitcoin Cash space for you know, several years. It's perfectly fair what you're saying. Like, you know, they have earned this. Like they have attracted the attention of people who want to invest in the space and all that. And so, you know, props to them. I paused and reflected for a moment on this. What would BCH do with that kind of money? I don't know. Like, you know, we're all operating on shoestring budgets over here. I was actually having a conversation again with Tula about this, where I was lamenting to him how busy I was. Like, there's just so much to do. And, you know, all the fifth of gaming stuff, that's stuff I do in my free time. I have a full-time job and I'm now married, and just there's all kinds of stuff going on. I work on a fifth of gaming when I've got, you know, a free hour here or there. And he said to me, like, that's pretty much what everyone's doing. Like, you know, it's not universal, but most of the people that are working in and contributing to the Bitcoin Cash space, this is their side hustle. So I was like, okay, well, maybe that's the first thing that we could do is like, you know, whoever is in control of this
full time.
Yeah, hire anyone who the community as a whole believes is like genuine about this, passionate about this. Like give them salaries and tell them work on whatever they want. Their deliverables are, you know, periodic reports on what they're doing, how they're doing, like something like the dev blog. This is what I have done with the money that the community has trusted me with. And then if that ever stops, then okay, the funding dries up. You don't get to do that anymore. So yeah, the numbers blew me away. I believe that BCH could do a lot of good. The BCH community could do a lot of good if they had this kind of money to throw around. But hey, maybe we'll get there. If we're ever number 2 on the coin market cap, I am sure more attention and therefore more money will follow. I am very interested to see how things go with Ethereum. So I used to be an Ethereum enthusiast, like Bitcoin Cash and Ethereum. Those were my 2 things that I was passionate about. And I eventually walked away from the project because I didn't feel like none of the projects that were running on Ethereum felt to me like they were solving real world problems. And the struggles that the Ethereum dev community is having with scaling layer 1 seem to me to be simply intractable. Like I don't feel like they have a way forward. And I believe looking back, have been justified in that decision because it really feels like they're drifting. They put so much effort into like all this layer 2 stuff that, you know, and I don't like layer 2s. And I think it was on an earlier episode of this podcast, you guys were talking about, I don't know, maybe it was, I don't know. I heard somewhere recently that, you know, Uniswap, I think, is like developing their own blockchain. And
the Fractal Bitcoin. No, that was Unisat. That's the BSV guys making Fractal Bitcoin. But maybe they are. Maybe Uniswap also is. I wouldn't be surprised to hear that because they're just sick of paying the L1 fees on ETH.
Right, and that was the issue that like whatever this post was talking about. It was like, you know, Uniswap to operate and settle to Ethereum has to pay these insane fees. And so kids may be like, okay, well, they are in exchange getting the security benefit of the Ethereum base layer. Okay, fine, but is that worth how many tens of millions of dollars they're paying in fees? The developers of Uniswap have a financial incentive to migrate to their own blockchain, where like the fees that are being paid today to buy security on the Ethereum base layer can just as easily be used to pay for security on a new base layer, layer one that's specifically for Uniswap. So they have a huge financial incentive to move over. And if that's the model, I don't think Ethereum can survive long term. Like if all of their biggest customers are incentivized to leave, they will leave. I don't know how they get around that. Now, the benefit for me is I don't participate in Ethereum anymore, so I don't really care what they do. But it is, in some sense, interesting to watch from the outside looking in and see, all right, Vitalik, what are you going to do next? What's the next play?
Well, that's right. And the thing is that the ETH community is really proud of their total aggregate fees being very high, because they say, oh, okay, we've made all this money, we've got all this demand, people are buying lots of block space, this nonsense that the bankless guys fed into their community, and that's great in the short term. But the problem is eventually the same thing that's happened on BTC. If you have high fees, people migrate to alternatives. You're in an infrastructure providing race against everyone else. When your fees are low, you can grow your network effect, and as long as that party keeps rolling, it's going great. But once your fees are persistently high and then competitors start to catch up, then those fees really start to hurt, and sooner or later your network effect starts to either decline or just is stagnant relative to everyone else rising as they get their act together, right? Which is kind of what the BCH community is doing.
At the end of the day, markets beget efficiency. So if this system is incredibly inefficient and expensive to use, and this one is not those things, then like any actual genuine business activity will tend towards the more efficient, cheaper option, in the same way that water flowing downhill will take the easiest path to back to the ocean. And there's no, I mean, you can fake it for a while, with enough VC and money pumping in or whatever, you can fake it for a while and say, this is going fantastic. But real businesses don't like paying real big fees. They will want to use the small fees. And again, I don't know how they get around this problem.
They just rationalize to themselves that they're going to pull another tech rabbit out of the hat. Basically, being on the EVM model has come back to bite, and now Vitalik is busy pumping out blog posts about the splurge and the scourge and all this great stuff that's going to be coming. But that's a few years ago. It was the what do you call it?
The merge, the purge. The merge.
A couple of those. It's like each of those things. Like it can only get you so far. It's only the next band-aid, right? Fee burning. We're seeing here on the chart. What is it? The second biggest spend, 25%, is L1 R&D. It really just made me wonder, because if BCH, like you said, if BCH had this kind of money, what would we do? Okay, well, we could probably fund a couple of node teams and all that, but would we, because we had so much money, would we just start doing all kinds of nonsense that we didn't actually need? Like BCH is doing VM limits, and that's great. I feel like if we had 10 times as much funding, I wouldn't want 10 more upgrades.
Right.
I'd want one more, maybe. Maybe we could do two things at once instead of, let's not just mix more into the soup just because more people have more money to make more upgrades. It's kind of like.
So I do feel like the BCH community today is very efficient by necessity. We have limited resources, we have limited time, and just kind of by necessity, we have to be very deliberate about what we choose to work on, what we choose to fund, all that good stuff. And that's fantastic. Now, it's easy to, congratulate ourselves. I'd love to say if we had a whole bunch of money, all that efficiency would stay, and we would just have this huge magnification of the effectiveness of this money. But human nature borne out makes me believe that probably we'd bungle it up somehow. Now part of me says, okay, well, look what we did with the chip process. That was a system that we came together to kind of formally describe a way of resource allocation. In this case, protocol upgrade slots once a year. Maybe we could, as a group, come up with an efficient way of, resource allocation for this funding that is the consensus is happy with. Now, we'd face a whole bunch of challenging problems. Like, okay, who exactly is going to control these keys? And, you know, who are they beholden to? What are their special interests? Like, there's a whole set of problems that come along with managing money for a community project like this. And certainly there are ways of mitigating that, like, you know, multi-key signatures and all that stuff. But I don't know. It's fun to speculate, but realistically, like, we don't have this big pile of money, so we don't have this problem yet. We'll cross the bridge when we come to it, I guess.
That's the point. That's the point, though. I think is that the BCH community now needs to be realistic and thinking clearly about the future, right? You can't get to the next level until you're killing it at your level and you're looking at the level above you, right? So ETH is even probably too far. Really, we need to be looking at something that's in the top 10, like Dogecoin or something like that, right? That they've got a bit more clout, they've got a bit more hype. What are they doing that we're not doing? And then we'll get to ETH and BTC later, right? But just the idea is that the BCH community is presumably not going to end up with we have a BCH foundation that Cheap Lightning has made to do some advertising, but that's different to these guys who created the whole protocol and have a huge, millions of dollars and everything like that, right? So. Yeah. The idea is that in the future, BCH community hopefully will be happening more sort of organically using fundme.cash and flip starters and donations, and hopefully it will be a bit more spread out. But I just thought it was a good idea for the BCH community to start thinking in the mindset of what it takes to be at that level, like of being number 2 on the CoinMarketCap. So here's an example, right? So at Bliss, we had 2 days and we had 45 attendees roughly. Now, the ETH guys this week are having or maybe next week, are having this thing, DevCon, in Bangkok. It's 4 days long. They've sold out 12,000 tickets with over 100 different side events. They have a custom app that you can go on to schedule all, because obviously you can't do everything, all the, the most important ones that you want to go and where they are, because there's a whole spread of different locations and stuff like that. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's wild.
Imagine if Bliss was like 12,000 people. That would be insane, right?
Imagine the Street Fighter tournament. It would take weeks.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you might have to run it. Well, maybe not, because it could be an exponential.
But realistically, we'd need like 40 couches with TVs.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm looking forward to when it is that big, right? But the whole point is, the BCH ecosystem, sometimes I think people are really like, oh, we deserve to be much higher in the ranks and stuff like that. And okay, BCH does have a lot of positives to it, but once you actually just take off your bias glasses and you look at the reality, is BCH having a 12,000 ticket sellout event? No. Okay, well there you go. We definitely don't deserve to be number 2 then. Right? In fact, are we even close? Not even in the right ballpark, right? But that's not to say that it's far away. It's just we've got to be strategic about how we get to that point, So
and I think we're trending in the right direction. So I checked before coming in, and when I was on the podcast last time, we were number 17 on CoinMarketCap, and today we're number 15. Now, I love extrapolation, if we, in 3 years we'll be in the top 10, and another 5 we will be number 1.
Yeah,
mark it down.
Okay, and just one final point, which I'm going to lead into the next topic as well too, is where should we be looking for inspiration? We're talking here about ETH, and I think some of the stuff they're doing wrong, like their protocol dev, I think they're getting that exactly wrong. But their marketing and their outreach and their events, I think they're doing exactly right? Now we've got on the other side the BTC guys. I mean, you're pretty in the weeds with this show and stuff, so I'm sure you've been following all of this. But I made this comment on Twitter about the crypto industry losing track of BCH. It feels like 2 years ago we were getting hated on. There was a lot of anti-sentiment and blah blah blah. It's just Bitcoin with bigger blocks, but nobody needs it, and yada 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 yada. Now I feel like we've jumped ahead a few, and while ABLA and VM limits have been getting a bit of traction, like the broader ecosystem, people are not talking about PCH. And so we've kind of got out of the spotlight a bit, which is in some ways a good and in some ways a bad thing. But we've got rid of a lot of that negative reputation. And now we're just quite like a little boat again. Just like we're like the little pirate ship, that's just cruising along the coastline, but not really under the spotlight just yet. So what have we got to do to get back in the spotlight, but in a positive way? Like, for instance, Polymarket, right? That was just this incredibly successful app that now all that chain is getting so much extra attention and stuff because they launched that one good app. How do we do something like that?
Yeah, I think you're on point talking about the BCH falling out of the spotlight in some respect. Like the NPCs in the BTC maximalist camp have been, programmed to, in the old days, be actively hostile. Like, they encounter a Bcacher in the wild, they're supposed to be critical of them. That created this problem for them where, like, hey, every time they encountered a Bcacher, they just got wrecked with like pesky truths and stuff. So the new plan of attack is, okay, ignore, like, just when you see them, don't engage with them, just pretend Bitcoin Cash doesn't exist. And I believe that's we're in the case right now, which, like I said, there's good things and bad things about that. The simple reality, the unfortunate reality is, you're not going to grow as a crypto project unless people are paying close attention to you, and people pay attention to the projects that are higher up on the market cap. That's the unfortunate reality part of it. But as to answer your question, the way we get there, I am still optimistic about the possibility that coming up sometime in the next decade or so, there will be more and more conversations about crypto as currency, like people using cryptocurrency as money for day-to-day transactions. And the need for that will be, I don't know what the catalyst, some major fiat currency failing or whatever, but people will come back to this space with, hey, didn't you guys say that you were going to be money? When that happens, if it happens, when it happens, projects that are good at that will rise to the top as people are sifting through, like, okay, what do we got here? Okay, XRP, that's fully centralized, fully controlled by this company, doesn't do anything. We'll put that aside. What do we got here? Okay, Shiba Inu literally does nothing, but it has a picture of a dog on it. Okay, great, but we don't need that right now. Put that aside. Bitcoin, conceptually, okay, yeah, this is cool, but actually it doesn't work at all. So, we can't use that. And, once all of the wheat has been separated from the chaff, so to speak, there will be projects that are remaining, and Bitcoin Cash is well poised to be among their number. Because we have been for years at this point. How long has it been since 2017? 7 years? 7 years and change. We have been laser focused and very efficient working towards how do we make this money? How do we make it as efficient, as cheap, as fast, as powerful as possible as money? And I believe we have made many very important steps forward in that direction. And I believe that effort will pay off when the world needs it. That's my fanciful daydream anyway. We'll see how it goes. You're muted. Still got nothing. Oh, I hear Jet.
Yes.
Oh, there we go. We got you.
Okay.
Hey, welcome back.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, that's where I kind of have to draw a bit of a line, though. Is I also think, yeah, okay, we've been doing the right thing. We've been doing the right thing, and we have. There's results. We're moving in the right direction, right? But we can't just tell ourselves that. It has to be what do we do right now to move the ball in that direction faster? Like on the listener survey, we had a question about that. If you were dictator of BCH, where would you be putting the money? Into mining infrastructure, into marketing outreach, into developing more apps, into wallets? Where's the focus need to be? What are we missing?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, I have, somewhat of a biased view of like, oh yeah, just put it all into app development. Like, sure, because I'm an app developer. But yeah, we are trying to solve a problem that has literally never been solved before. There's no playbook that we can open up and say, oh, here's how they, if you're building a rocket, you can open up, here's how they did it for the Apollo program, for going to the moon. But we don't have anything like that. So we can, make educated guesses, what seems good. We can do trial and error. We can, document successes, what works, what doesn't, all that sort of thing. But yeah, I think for me at least, the answer is I have no idea. Like how would resources best be allocated to move us towards that ultimate goal? I believe that all of the things that are on the list are important. I'll say I don't think mining infrastructure needs any like special attention. Like that's a problem that will just like the market will fix that as the value of hashing on BCH increases. People will just build the equipment to collect that revenue automatically. I don't know.
Maybe that's the answer, then is it that we need better stats, we need better insight into what's working and what's not. I mean, if you look at the ETH ecosystem, for instance, or even if you look at the BTC ecosystem, they have loads of this stuff that's like node dashboards and like mempool analysis and like all this stuff that is not actually really relevant to that much, but they built a way to have a lot of insight into what's going on with their hodled coins. Are they all being hodled correctly, etc. like that, right? Loads of these dashboards and stat sites and stuff like that. And then the ETH guys, they have similar, but it's for app activity. They have DeFi Llama, they have various dashboards to see June analytics, if one protocol is doing better than another, how much traction is going on, where did they spend their ETH Foundation money, like all this sort of stuff, right? So I feel like maybe that's where we're at,
That's true. That's a very fair point. But thinking about, the other side of the coin, we are at bottom trying to solve a fundamentally different problem than those projects are. Like, Bitcoin pretends to be peer-to-peer electronic cash, but, like you just said, the dashboards they're creating are not, how many merchants are being adopted or, whatever. It's how many coin days have been accumulated from just coins sitting stationary and not being used on the network. And so I don't have
but
like
we could make those
final
dashboards.
Right. And that's kind of what I was thinking is like, I don't have like a grand final point for this point that I'm making other than, yes, they're doing that stuff, but I don't know we want to like replicate exactly what they're doing because, we're trying to blaze a different trail through like, a different forest, so to speak. And by and large, I think we are doing the correct things. Like, we solved the block size limit once and for all. Like that's huge. Given the history of Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, that is absolutely enormous. We have a special focus on, zero confirmation transactions, like instantly and free, any amount of money anywhere. The segment that you did with Jason Dreisner about like, more secure zero conf transactions. I have never heard that before. That sounds amazing. Like those kinds of things are the things I think we should be focusing on so that every time the opportunity comes up to say, hey, here's Bitcoin Cash as money. Let me knock your socks off with how well it works, how fast it is. Like it's blows everything else out of the water because no one else is trying to do this as seriously and as hard as we're trying to do this, possible exception, Monero community. Shout out to the Monero bros out there. And again, maybe this is just my naivete or, being overly optimistic. I believe that redemption arc will be completed. And, we will get to the point where the world is going to need what we have to offer. And I think it's, it falls to us to keep our head down, keep things working, moving forward towards protocol improvements so that when there is a big burst through the door of new users, we're ready for them, and everything's just spins up automatically. Everything's good to go.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm in 2 months. I mean, I agree with you. I agree with you in the long run, but I also don't think we can afford too much to have this mentality of like, build it and they will come, you know? What if we're here and we've got everything good, then boom, like one day it'll all just fall into place. No, that's not how it's going to work. And that's why I'm trying to look at these other bigger coins, you know? What have they got that we don't? Because what they're doing is working, at least in a certain way, right?
That's very fair. That's a very fair counterpoint. And I don't have a counterpoint. You're probably right about that. Then of course, like the follow-up question is the question we started with, like, okay, well, what do we do about that? And I don't know. I've got my little world. I teach people about BCH. I've got a couple of tenants that pay me in BCH. I use it at I offer it to every vendor. I build it into my Fifth of Gaming platform. So I'm a very like small scale. I don't know what the grand picture, what the grand plan should be.
Nobody needs
difficult.
to. Nobody has to know exactly. You know, I just think it's important we keep having these.
Yeah, we should for sure keep talking about it. We should for sure, as a group, continue having these conversations. Like, you know, are we moving in the right direction? Is there anything that we can or should be doing to make people aware of what we're doing? And, you know, the impressive ways that we solve a long list of real world, really serious problems. It's good. And yeah, I'm here for it.
I'm curious, yes. Jeremy, what metrics like would you want to see visualized? Because I do have that Grafana instance, and that tracks like basic node information, like what blocks we're at, how many peers my node has, the uptime, unconfirmed transactions, fees, block size, that kind of thing.
Well, a couple of things that I know for sure that we're missing is, so like in Selene, we have the daily users graph. I think that's a good start to where I'm going with this, and hopefully, you know, we'll continue iterating on that. But two things that are really obvious to me is that the BTC guys have those dashboards of the nodes, bit nodes and whatever, where they have a world map and it's like the IP addresses or whatever are all spread out on them. I feel like if we had a site like that visualized all the nodes, because we don't have to be node obsessed like they are, but if we had that node dashboard and you could see it, then all this, BCH is not decentralized, it doesn't have any nodes, blah, blah, you'd just be like, bam, here's this page, FUD destroyed, you know? And I feel like even the process of creating that page and then having people looking at it would also make us think more about, do we need to make more node guides on how to run a node? Do we need to document better? Would be perfect combination with that. Like, what is the actual cost to run a BCH node? Here, you'll need an internet connection this speed. You'll need, you know, it'll cost you roughly this much in these parts of the world. You're going to need this hardware. Here's how you wire it up. Here's a guide to do all this. Boom, and then your node will appear on this site along with everyone else. And if we just had that, I think that would do a lot to attack that. And then you could have projected costs for the future, and you could have the research about ABLA, and you could have all this stuff that would just tie together a lot of the concern by people who look into this, who are more on that node end, and they want to see nodes. Okay, so that's one thing. Another thing is the merchants, like you mentioned, David, like that still is a problem that nobody has really got to the bottom of. Like the Bitcoin.com map, it's kind of flaky. They're busy doing something else. They don't really care, like, you know, whatever. And then the Paytaka guys have recently been doing a really good job. So shout out to them.
Yeah, they've been crushing it. Shout out to Paytaka. Yeah, good on those guys.
They've made the best stab at it, but it still needs to escalate up a couple levels, I think. You know, it needs to be integrated into all the wallets, maybe not just their wallet. And it needs to include the merchants in Townsville, which I know they're now collaborating with a little bit, and in St. Kitts, and in South America. You know, we just need to have some map that you can reliably look at wherever you are in the world, even if it only starts with 90% of the world is blank, but wherever you are in the world, and you go to those places and you know that you can spend the BCH there. And that needs to be tied to, here's all the information about BCH, and here's where you can buy things online. So that if we want to have that money vibe, that's something we need to have.
Yeah, money vibe is, where can I spend it? Like, what can I actually do with this? Yeah, and
that's literally the first thing everyone asks you. where can I spend it?
Where
And
can
if
I
you just
spend it?
open your Selene wallet and just show them, bam, here's a map, and here's all this place. And people literally do that with the Bitcoin.com wallet, but then people try it and then discover, oh, okay, half these merchants are out of date and it's a wreck.
Yeah.
And it's not just us that have this problem. Like, it's the same thing in the other more cash community. They literally have the same exact problem. So nobody in crypto has really
No one's solved this yet.
this problem.
Yeah.
And I feel like if we had, $135 million, I would put down a mill to get somebody to work
solve
on this
that problem.
instantly.
Yeah,
that would
someone,
be huge.
Make a team, hashtag someone or slash someone, make a team, get together a proposal, show it to the community. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's how much it's going to cost. Here's, expected delivery date, that kind of thing. Like, that would be fantastic. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I would fund a Flipstarter like that. I'll have to do it myself. In fact, I've even thought about it. Khaleesi and I are talking about it for Selene because we need to do something in this area. So that's another one. Then you have, what about the Flipstarters and the FundMes? Again, that's also improving. Shout out to Sayoshi Nakamoto particularly, who's doing good work on this. But I want to be able to see, and people have talked about it for ages, a site where you had the Flipstarter, you had, these are the things that have been funded, here's their delivery, here's their output, here's their proof of work. I mean, I've put that together for the podcast, but we need that across the whole scene so that if you're new to BCH, you can go there and instantly be like, wow, there's all this different stuff going on. And if I want more of X or Y, all I have to do is just chuck my coins into this. And that would also help the retention rate of people doing a small Flipstarter, getting progress, having somewhere that they know that if they delivered results, because that's a problem. If you have a small project, not only do you have to build something and advertise it and get people to use it, but then you've also got to find a way to continuously reach people about the updates, which is like with the dev blogs with AFoG, And so I'm trying to help people get that reach, but we can only cover so much stuff. And it needs to be like some place, I don't know what we can do, some kind of aggregated dev blog site or something like that. Twitter doesn't really do it. Telegram doesn't really do it. Even Beach House and Read.cash, they're all in the right zone, right? But none of them is like, here's just a BCH dashboard that you can go to and just see all the funding and at least the most important stuff that's going on and get into the weeds of it. And then you've got the DeFi stuff as well too. Now that we've got these sort of projects coming up like Tokenaut that I talked with Matthew about. That's amazing. But if you look in the ETH guys, they've got all these dashboards and all kinds of crap to know what's actually going on. And we don't have anywhere near as much of that because we're nowhere near as big. But because the cash token ecosystem is starting to roll in the right direction, things are doing well there. But I would love it if we had, because I would do more segments about it on the show. Look, here's the stats, here's this breakdown, here's that, this, that, and the other. And then you can also more easily identify, here's the problem, why isn't this line going up? And then that's where we need to attack,
Yeah, agree. I got nothing to add. That sounds amazing. It's one of these, it'd be cool if we could like wave a wand and make this exist. It's just a lot of work between here and there, and yeah, I don't know. I love the idea though.
No, it is. Anyway, it just strikes me as the fact that between the three of us here, we're not like instantly like, this is the problem BCH needs to solve and this is where we need to attack. That's a symptom of we need better information, and then we would know.
Or maybe it's a sign that everything's fantastic.
Well, true.
Probably not.
No, it is. I mean, we're going in the right direction, but we got to go faster. Again, it's like I said about the boat. We got to go faster. Okay, meme of the week is on this exact topic that we've been just talking about. It came from Fiendish Crypto, who got it from Bitcoin Out Loud, and I know a few people were contributing to this, but this is this meme that people might have seen that has been very popular on Twitter because of Elon Musk and others, that it's this 3-line series. How do you describe this? With these 3 little stick figure guys standing on a continuum.
Yeah,
and so the original is about the Republicans and Democrats. So the original has a Republican on the right side and then a line, and then there's a line in the middle, so you can see where's the line between the middle of the Republican and the Democrat political spectrum. And on the left side is the Democrat, and then in the middle is labeled me, but he's on the left side of the line, so he's closer to the Democrat. And then in the second line, the Democrat starts running to the left, which then puts the guy who's me in the middle, basically in the middle, right? And then in the third line, he's gone even way further off to the edge. And so now the middle is to the other side, and me is now on the conservative side. So it's kind of like the conservative and the middle person, me, haven't moved, and the Democrat has moved off to the left and has put the guy in the middle onto the other side. Not because that guy moved, but because they moved. So we made a BCH version of that, which is 2017, 2020, and 2024. So in 2017, it's the Bitcoiner digital gold guy on the left, and the Bcasher P2P cash on the right, and me is in the middle, but more to the digital gold. You know, a lot of people like that. And then 2020, the digital gold guy takes off to the left, saying Bitcoin isn't for poor people, and my fellow Bitcoiner (?) is the label. So me is a bit confused. And now in 2024, it's like the digital gold guy's USD maximalist saying shitcoiner, and me in the middle is confused, and the Bcash is saying welcome. So it's kind of this idea that BCH hasn't changed. We're still doing what we're doing. And a lot of people, if maybe we're on that other side, are starting to kind of think, you know, BCH is not looking too bad, just because the BTC guys have gone too far away, right?
I love how the very last digital gold guy is labeled USD maximalist. Like, that is the transition that happened for, you know, Bitcoin as a population switched from, you know, Bitcoin to digital gold to I just want more dollars. I want more US dollars. Quick aside. Describing this meme for people who can't see it. that looked hard, but you crushed it. I love this meme template though.
I always try to be cognizant of our audio only listeners, you know, the RSS feed, and I don't know, people, you know, like I put on podcasts and stuff while I'm cooking and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you aren't always staring at the screen. Yep. Anyway, the point is, I think that just kind of cuts to what we were saying, like saying, okay, we haven't moved, therefore people will eventually get it. That's true to a certain degree, but I think we can do it a little better than that. We can't just wait for the world to fail. We have to actively succeed. Okay, message to the community. You know how it goes. What does the BCH community need to hear?
Yeah, so I certainly want to say all the things that people usually say on the message to the community, the encouragement and all that. But since people usually say that, I'm going to skip that. And instead, my message to the community for this episode is going to be an invitation. So I am starting this new guild on the 5th of Gaming. It's called the Big Costco Hot Dog World Tour. This is a social guild, so there's no tournaments, there's no intense competition, there's no like prize payouts, there's no buy-in or anything like that. It's just meant to be a casual game night, get together with fellow Bitcoin cashers and just hang out in Discord, shoot the breeze, play a game, maybe have a couple of drinks, you know, whatever you're vibing with. And I picked the name very deliberately. This is a world tour. So the gimmick for this guild is that the time zone of the events is going to always be changing. So the first event is 5 p.m. New York City time, because that's the time zone that I'm in right now. But the next event is going to move forward 5 time zones, and it's going to be London time. And the session after that is going to be another 5 sessions forward. So we'll be in like Kazakhstan or whatever. And we're going to go all the way around the world, hitting all the time zones. So if you listening to me are, you know, passively interested in video games, you just want to, you know, hang out with more members of the Bitcoin Cash community, wherever you are in the world, there will be an episode of the BCH World Tour, you know, coming to a time zone near you, so to speak. Please join us. We are going to be playing Risk of Rain 2 at the beginning, because Risk of Rain 2 is a super fun cooperative game that can support up to 16 players in the session at the same time. So we can have a huge group playing at the same time, which would be absolutely amazing. But if you don't like Risk of Rain 2, or you think we should be playing something else, it's also important to note that 5th of Gaming has a game nomination and selection system built into it. So if there's some other game that you think we should be playing, go to 5th of Gaming, join the BCH World Tour, and there'll be a nominate button. Click the nominate button and just submit a game that you think the group should be playing, and the group will vote on it, and that's how we will pick the game that we'll play after Risk of Rain 2. So that's my message to the community. I love you guys. You're awesome. Thank you so much for your support. Please join me. Let's play some games.
This is a good point. Maybe this is the answer. Creating more community spaces. Maybe that's how we need to grow things. Just getting together with more BCHs, and that is fertile ground for ideas.
I appreciate the way I've heard Fiendish say this a couple of times, like, oh yeah, crypto should be fun. Like, and certainly I believe that there is a certain gravity and seriousness to like this incredible quest that we're on. But yeah, we should be, able to also have a good time. And like these people that we're, shoulder to shoulder with, trying to push the world towards a free and open currency, friendships develop as you're going through this struggle together. And, games are just, I don't know, a great way to spend time with friends and, get to know them better and strive towards something that's not quite as serious. Like, let's see if we can defeat this boss rather than let's see if we can free the world from financial tyranny.
Pretty hard final boss we've already got. So
right, exactly.
Do a few side quests along the way.
Side quests, exactly.
It's all good. All right. Shout out to our fun V. Oh, go on.
Okay, so I saw a couple tweets about Elon being like a ridiculously insane video game player. How do you get Elon pumped about one of these tournaments? Because then,
hey, that would
you'll
do
be
it.
the biggest app. BCH will skyrocket.
That would do it. Yeah, when I saw that, I was astonished. So I think it was on Joe Rogan. He said, "I'm one of the top 20 Diablo players in the world." He said, "There's 2 Americans in the top 20. I'm one of them." And you can go check. He's using his real name. It is Elon Musk on there. And, having played hardcore World of Warcraft, I know what's involved in getting to that level of one of these leaderboards. Is he really doing it? Like, because if he is, that's incredible. And I've seen videos of him playing Diablo 4, and yeah, he's pretty darn good. But boy, he must have done a lot of farming, a lot of grinding to get, that level of gear. But I don't know. Even if he's got interns grinding for him, the fact that he can play at that level is impressive in its own right. But
as far as I know, I think he doesn't, I
think he streams himself. Right. So
you're right. It is kind of a little bit beyond belief that you're like, okay, how did he, like anybody else basically couldn't even run one of his companies, let alone he runs 6 of them, goes on podcasts, wins the election for Donald Trump, has 10 kids, and then he's like, let me just grind up a D4.
By the way, I'm a world-class tier 150 Diablo 4 player. It's like, how do you have the time?
I literally don't know how he does it. But as far as I'm aware, no, it's he just plays it all himself. I mean, he posted a message a while ago where he said he just posted to everyone like, oh, you can basically hack picking up some of the resources somehow, because the tooltip was it takes your remaining X and converts it into some Y. So he figured out that if you basically if you have 100, you drop 99 and then you do it with 1, and then you pick up your remaining 99 and then you drop 98 and you do it. So then you can basically get 100 payouts instead of the 1 that you're supposed to in the game. So then he would actually have an insane amount of resources. And I was like, how many millions and millions of people are playing this game? And he was the only one who read that instruction and figured out, okay, this is what I got to do. Tried it and it worked. And then he was just like, okay. So, I mean, if he's just able to figure out those kind of hacks and stuff, I don't know, it's just crazy.
Elon Musk gets a lot of criticism, and there is some of it that is, I believe, well-deserved. But boy, he has a strong mind. He is good at thinking about things and coming to, workable solutions. And, Diablo 4 is an example of a series of problems that need to be solved in order to succeed. And it's just an example of him doing that again.
Yeah, it's unreal. Anyway, Fund Me, episodes 126 to 135. This is episode 135, so we have delivered once again. And what's this, our 5th round, or maybe our 6th? But we'll be starting another one soon, because you got to get paid. So Majumali Marcelo 2024 bcharg.com, molecular Erdogan talk economics writer, BCH artist, LFG, cash stamps, biggest soundboard for BCH we have. Keep up the great job, guys. We've got Celine support for that is coming soon, everyone. That's in the works right now. Peter Wooler, I think that goals should be and can realistically be everyone simultaneously having on-chain funds. Milton Friedman, Emergent Reasons, Stay Grounded, Stay Awesome, P2P, Electronic Cash for the World. Yeah, Beer, try to get Vlad Kostia on one of these next episodes. Would be a great discussion as he's opening up. Big V and the Bitcoin Cash Tokyo gang, Bitcoin Cash Tokyo weekly meetup, session community, http://bitcoincash.tokyo, and Bitcoin Jason, who I saw in the chat before, the man, the myth, the legend. You are, I am, we are all Satoshi. Let's do our part. Thank you to our donators and our patrons, Ricky and HP, and our sponsor, General Protocols. Check out bchbull.com. Start guide FAQs and links are at bitcoincashpodcast.com. Try Celine Wallet at Celine.cash. David, final shout outs, and where can people find more of you?
Yeah, my shout out is to my wonderful wife, Emily. I love you so much. Thank you for your ongoing care and support. If you want to find more about me, I'm on Twitter at DavidShattuck8, and afifthofgaming.com is where you can pop in and play some tournaments or join us for some Risk of Rain. Oh, I should also mention A Fifth of Gaming has a Twitter account as well. It's at A5TH of Gaming, at A Fifth of Gaming.
Yes, Chet.
Yeah, so I don't know if I've tweeted about this before, but so there, and this is only applicable to other Canadians. So, and I'm a little shilling a little bit here too. Bulk Buddy, I think it's .com. They're a mail order marijuana dispensary, accepts Bitcoin Cash. I convinced them to do it, and they just use one address, which I know not great for privacy, but I've checked up on them, and there's not enough people using them. So if you're Canadian and you're interested, they're fantastic. They've been great customer service. So shout out to them. Go. I would like to see people actually using the merchants that we have. So.
Yeah, that's great. And my shout out, I think it has to go to Paytaka. They have been absolutely crushing it, putting updates in the Telegram channel. I get super inspired when I just see them just rolling out the updates, week after week after week. It's crazy. They're doing a great job, and it really inspires me to do better about the same, putting out updates. I'm working on something in that regard, hopefully. But yeah, just the whole BCH community, where we don't have all the answers, but as long as we keep working on it, I think we're getting there. We're moving in the right direction, but whatever the key is to get to the next level, we haven't quite hit it yet. And so yeah, keep cracking on with it, and I'm sure we'll come up with it at some point. All right, thanks everyone for listening. Till next time.
Reports that more than 500,000 Iraqi children have died as a direct result of U.S. sanctions. It's not just theoretical. These are real people with real lives. 500,000 kids? I'm sorry for shouting, but it just disgusts me what these people in government do. And they do it through central banking and through the control of the money supply, and Bitcoin takes that away from them.
This is the sound of freedom coming out your speakers. Are they playing hide and seek or finders keepers? Let me define my thesis. While they treasonous deep in the malfeasance, a grand deception, 1,000 reasons, keeping